Chapter 673. Since it wasn't the Long family, then who could it be? Longao couldn't think of a reason no matter how hard he thought about it. Because there was one thing he couldn't understand, and that was why the old ancestor had disappeared. His parents were just ordinary people. Even if they had the inheritance of the divine way, it was not something that could be done overnight to become a divine way martial artist. But the old ancestor was different. As a heavenly god martial artist, unless it was a divine way martial artist of the same level, who else could take the old ancestor away without anyone knowing? This matter was a little strange. Longao regretted not being in the Crystal Palace to ask the godly mathematician. Perhaps others didn't know, but he was very sure that the oracle knew about this matter. No matter what, if it wasn't for the oracle, he wouldn't have been able to rush back so quickly. The path of divine divination. At this moment, Longao couldn't figure out who had taken away his old ancestor and parents. After chatting with his grandfather for a while, Longao immediately began to comprehend the path of divine divination. He knew very well that if he wanted to know who did this as soon as possible, then there was only one way, and that was to comprehend the path of divine divination as soon as possible. Longao didn't return to the Crystal Palace in the Outer Sea. Because Longao knew that even if he went back, the oracle might not tell him. If the oracle was willing to tell him, he would have told him back then. There was no need to wait until now. Because of this, Longao focused on comprehending the path of divine divination. The dragon sect didn't continue to search for Mu Lin and Long Yi's whereabouts. Not only that, everyone went into hiding. For a time, the dragon sect seemed to be completely silent. Not only that, the news of their disappearance was completely blocked by the dragon sect. 3 days later, Longao quietly left the sect and headed for the spirit realm of the 9 states. After comprehending the path of divine divination for 3 days, he still didn't find anything. The more it was like this, the more danger his parents and old ancestor were in. Therefore, Longao couldn't wait a moment longer. Although he knew that this matter might not be the doing of the 4 great forces, Longao was still unwilling to let go of any clues. He immediately rushed to the spirit realm of the 9 states to investigate the 4 great forces and see if it had anything to do with the disappearance of his parents and old ancestor. The spirit realm of the 9 states. 3rd level Long family, main hall. Long Yang and Long Maloan were extremely surprised by Longao's sudden appearance. The relationship between the 4 major forces and the dragon sect had already reached the point where they were like fire and water. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. If it weren't for the fact that they wanted to see what Longao was here for, the 2 of them would have attacked long ago. Heavenly Saint Realm. Long Maoan and Long Yang had no idea that Longao's cultivation had officially broken through to the Sky Saint Realm. Otherwise, who knew what they would think? However, one had to admit that Longao's guts were very big. Even if he was a heavenly Ascension Realm warrior, once the Long family wanted to deal with him, it would be an easy matter. This was because the rank 3 Long clan had Sage Kings, Sage Emperors, Sage Venerables, Sage Emperors, and even titled Great Emperors. Master Long, may I know why you've come this time? Long Maoan and Long Yang's martial arts were pretty good. At the very least, one couldn't tell that the 2 of them had a grudge against Longao. If an outsider saw them, they would think that the 3 of them were friends and not enemies. Long Maoan, I don't have time to waste with you. Let's get straight to the point. I've come this time mainly for one thing. Longao didn't believe in hiding anything, so he told them about the disappearance of his parents. After hearing this, both Long Maoan and Long Yang were shocked. This was because the 2 of them had never imagined that Longao's parents would go missing right under the nose of the dragon sect. If Longao hadn't said it himself, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. In an instant, Long Maoan and Long Yang knew the purpose of Longao's visit. Longao thought that they were the ones who did it. Long Maoan laughed coldly and said, Longao, it wasn't my Long clan's doing. Longao believed Long Maoan's words 100%. This was because he had already guessed that the disappearance of his parents and ancestors had nothing to do with the 4 major forces. Even so, Longao was prepared to give it a try. Long Maoan, among the 4 major forces in the 9 states, There are only 3 that are most likely to be responsible. Other than the Nether Mansion, I have to find my parents no matter what. Once I find out, no matter who it is, I'll destroy their entire family. Longao's intention was very clear. He had even made his threat clear. If an ordinary person had said this, Long Maoan and Long Yang would have only coughed and treated the person's words as nonsense. However, Longao's situation was completely different. Longao had the right to say this. Not to mention other things, just the so-called corpse slave army alone wasn't something that an ordinary person could fight against. However, Long Maoan and Long Yang clearly weren't worried. The two of them knew very well that unless it was absolutely necessary, they believed that Longao wouldn't choose to die together with them. Longao, I've already said that the disappearance of your parents has nothing to do with my Long clan. Have you gotten a satisfactory answer now? Alright, I hope you remember what you've said today. You want to leave? Long Maoan suddenly laughed coldly as he looked at Longao, who was about to turn and leave. At this moment, 8 Earth Saints and 2 Heavenly Saints suddenly appeared in the Long clan's main hall. In Long Maoan and Long Yang's opinion, this force was enough to easily kill Longao. Whether it was Long Maoan or Long Yang, they still thought that Longao was just an insignificant saint. Little did they know that in just a few months, Longao's cultivation had increased tremendously. He had gone from a saint's substitute to a heavenly saint. After a few days of stabilizing, Longao's heavenly saint realm had more or less stabilized. Although he couldn't fight against an advanced heavenly saint or a peak heavenly saint, Longao was still confident that he could fight against a beginner heavenly saint and a mid-heavenly saint. However, among the 2 heavenly saints that the Long clan had sent out, one was an advanced heavenly saint and the other was a mid-heavenly saint. With such a force, Longao didn't dare to be careless. He was ready to attack at any moment. Long Maoan, do you think you can keep me here? Looking at Longao's confident face, Long Maoan and Long Yang felt even more uncertain. Could it be that Longao was really that confident? Both of them didn't believe it. After all, in their opinion, Longao was just an insignificant saint. Even an Earth Saint could easily take care of Longao, let alone fighting against 10 heavenly saints alone. Longao, you and I both know how strong you are. With your current strength, aren't you a little too arrogant to think that you can walk out of the Long clan? I'll give you a chance. As long as you take the Dragon sect and merge with the Long clan, I'll consider letting you go. How about it? This was arrogance. This was capital. In Long Maoan's opinion, Longao was nothing in his eyes. In his opinion, Longao was dead meat. Chapter 674. Longao snorted in his heart. Ever since Longao had broken through to the Heavenly Saint realm, he had never tested his strength. An Earth Saint martial artist would not be placed in Longao's eyes. However, Longao did not have full confidence in defeating Heavenly Saint martial artists. Longao knew very well that Long Maoan was only doing this because he wanted to regain his face from the last time. However, Longao had managed to leave the Long family despite being surrounded by experts the last time Longao went to the Long family. The Long family had lost their face. Long Maoan, if I asked you to bring your family into the Dragon sect, would you agree? Looks like you're still stubborn. Before Longao could speak, Long Yang suddenly said, Longao, as the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. You'd better know your place. Otherwise, not only you, but even the Dragon sect will suffer because of you. Ha ha ha. Longao laughed and said, Long Maoan, cut the crap. If you think you can keep me here, just do it. There's no need to waste time. Longao's confidence had indeed stunned the two of them. However, Long Maoan and Long Yang would not give up such a rare opportunity so easily. They did not continue to talk nonsense. This battle was unavoidable, so there was no need to talk nonsense. Long Maoan and Long Yang slowly retreated 20 steps. The 2 heavenly saints also retreated, leaving only 8 Earth Saints. The Long family's intention was clear. If they used the heavenly saints to kill Longao, even if they succeeded, the Long family would lose face. Just as Longao had guessed, Long Maoan's attack this time was not only because of the grudge between Longao and the rank 3 Long family, but also because he wanted to regain his face. That was why the Long family thought that 8 Earth Saints were more than enough. Looking coldly at the 8 Earth Saints in front of him, Longao did not release any aura as if he had a card up his sleeve. Kill. One of the 8 Earth Sages dashed out as soon as Long Merciless said the word kill. The way the 8 of them saw it, even if they defeated Longao together, it would not be a glorious victory. Because of this, one of them was prepared to fight alone. Everyone from the Long family was filled with confidence. They believed that even if one of them attacked, Longao would be dead for sure. However, what happened next completely shocked everyone. This was because Longao had only used one move to kill an Earth Saint. It turned out that Longao had used the Divine Dragon Arm when he attacked earlier. Not to mention that Longao was an entire grade higher than an Earth Sage. Even if they were of the same grade, if Longao wanted to kill an Earth Sage, he could do it in an instant. After smashing Earth Sage to death with a single punch, Longao did not hesitate in the slightest. Following that, Longao charged towards the 7 people. This time, Longao also went on a killing spree. It was still the same old saying, if you don't offend me, I won't offend you. If you offend me, I'll return the favor twofold. Longao did not give the 7 Earth Sages any chance. In the blink of an eye, the 8 of them were engaged in a fierce battle. In just a few moves, the battle between the two sides had escalated infinitely. Long Merciless and Long Yang's expressions were extremely ugly. The two of them had never imagined that Longao's cultivation had already broken through. He was not a so-called saint, but a genuine Earth Sage. Not only that, Longao's strength could kill an Earth Sage in an instant. This in itself was enough to prove how powerful Longao was. Losing an Earth Sage made Long Merciless heart ache. However, things had already developed to this point. Long Merciless was very clear that he had to kill Longao. Otherwise, not only would he lose an Earth Sage for nothing, but the Long family's reputation would also be completely lost. Even so, the two heavenly sages did not make a move. Sometimes, these cultivators were like this. They clearly knew that they were not a match for others, but they still cared about their reputation. If the two heavenly sages had made a move earlier, things would not have developed to this point. 1 against 7. Longao's fists smashed out consecutively. The Divine Dragon Arm and the Hell Tiger Arm alternated. A series of fist shadows appeared, not giving the 7 people the slightest chance. Longao wanted to end the battle quickly. He clearly knew that the longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. After all, behind the 7 Earth Sages, there were still 2 Heavenly Sages and even more hidden cultivators. Therefore, he could not afford to waste any time. Blood-sucking blade. Longao held the blood-sucking blade in his hand and directly slashed out with his most powerful blade. It was the devouring sky. The terrifying blade light instantly tore apart the space, and the terrifying spatial crack devoured everything. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. The 7 Earth Sages naturally knew what was going on. Not daring to continue fighting, the 7 Earth Sages immediately prepared to escape. However, everything seemed to be too late. The blade light had already devoured everyone. Without a doubt, the 7 Earth Sages were devoured completely. After dealing with the 7, Longao did not leave. Instead, he stared coldly at the 4 people before him. With a cold snort, Longao said indifferently, "Long Morwen, you forced me. Don't blame me for being merciless." At this moment, Long Morwen and Long Yang's faces were extremely gloomy. A total of 8 Earth Sages were mercilessly killed just like that. A total of 8 Earth Sages. 8 Earth Sages. Even the Long family could not afford to lose them. Longao, do you think that you can go against my Long family just because you killed 8 people? Whether I have the right or not, you don't have the right to say it. I have the right to say it. If I can kill 8 people, I can kill all of you. If you don't believe me, you can try. Longao's words made Long Morwen's face turn even gloomier. This was because Long Morwen had never imagined that things would turn out like this. When did Longao become so powerful? Such a cultivation speed was a little too terrifying. If this kid was not eliminated, there would be endless trouble in the future. Elders, I'll leave this person to you. Nodding their heads, the two heavenly sages of the Long family were no longer as relaxed as before. The blade light that Longao had just used was too powerful. Just the spatial crack that it created was something that the two heavenly sages were not able to do. Not to mention them, even divine martial artists would not be able to do this. To be able to kill 7 Earth sages in an instant, 1 against 7, was enough to prove Longao's strength. As two heavenly sages, they were afraid of a young man. If this matter were to spread, many people would not believe it. Are the two of you afraid? Longao, I have to admit that your talent and potential are the best in the 9 continents. However, don't be arrogant. I can tell you clearly that your strength is worthless in the eyes of the Long family. It would be easy for the Long family to eliminate you. Originally, we wanted to give you a chance to join our Long family. However, it seems like you won't have the chance now. Chapter 675. Long Mo cursed in his heart. Longao had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such shameless people. He found it hard to imagine what gave the two of them such courage when things had already come to this point. Not to mention anything else, how could the two heavenly saints not see anything fishy about the spatial crack that he had created? However, Longao was not worried. Even if one of them was an advanced heavenly saint, he still wanted to see how strong he was now. Longao, we'll let you know the difference between us in 10 moves. 10 moves. The two heavenly saints were very confident that they could easily kill Longao in 10 moves. However, Longao sneered and extended his right hand. Others might not know what he meant, but Long Maoan and the other two heavenly saints knew what he meant. 5 moves. The two heavenly saints needed 10 moves, but Longao only needed 5 moves. What did this mean? Longao was a little too arrogant. Looking at the young man in front of them, especially his blood-red hair and black clothes, the two heavenly saints were extremely annoyed. They had never seen such an arrogant person before. Although they were very confident, the two heavenly saints still had some fear in their hearts. If it had been an ordinary Earth Saint martial artist, they would not have taken him seriously. However, the situation of the young man in front of them was completely different. The spatial crack that Longao had created had deeply shocked everyone, especially the two heavenly saints. Perhaps Long Maoan and Long Yang could not feel anything, but the two heavenly saints knew very well that if they had been swallowed by Longao's saber radiance, the result would have been the same. They would have died without a burial place. Both parties did not continue to talk nonsense. Both parties stared at each other, exuding powerful killing intent. Before they even made a move, the powerful killing intent from both parties had already collided violently. Sparks flew in all directions, giving off a feeling that it was either one of them who would die. Long Maoan and Long Yang retreated once again, because their strength was no longer at this level. Long Maoan and Long Yang's faces darkened again. Patriarch, Longao's strength has increased too quickly. It has far exceeded our understanding. If this continues, no one can guarantee how far he can go. Long Maoan didn't say anything. He just listened quietly. Clan, with Longao's cultivation speed, if we continue to indulge him, I'm afraid that one day, we won't be able to control him. Long Maoan nodded. How could he not know what Long Yang was worried about? Because of that, Long Maoan had already made up his mind. This time, no matter what happens, we have to capture this kid. Heaving a long sigh of relief, Long Yang was very wary of Longao, even afraid. The two of them stared unblinkingly at the shocking battle before them. It was hard to imagine that before the battle even started, just the collision of killing intent was already so shocking. Neither side moved. Even so, the two heavenly saints were extremely shocked. They almost shouted in shock, "You're actually a heavenly saint martial artist." Heavenly saint martial artist? Longao was a heavenly saint martial artist. Hearing the two heavenly saint elders' words, both Long Maoan and Long Yang were shocked. The two of them had never imagined that Longao, who they thought was just an Earth Saint martial artist, would actually become a heavenly saint martial artist. Long Yang and Long Maoan looked at each other. Both of them could see the deep fear in each other's eyes. This was too terrifying. How long had it been? In just a few months, Longao had broken through from the saint stage to the heavenly saint stage. What did this mean? This kind of cultivation speed wasn't something that a human could achieve. At this moment, the two of them finally understood why Longao could kill an Earth Saint in an instant. Moreover, he could still succeed in killing 7 Earth Saints in a 1-on-7 situation. Longao only smiled. At this moment, Longao suddenly moved. In the end, Longao still chose to make the first move. Although his cultivation had already broken through to the Heavenly Saint stage, he was still a beginner Heavenly Saint. If it was a 1-on-1 battle, he might have full confidence. However, in a 1-on-2 situation, Longao was more or less a little worried. Because of this, Longao finally chose to end the battle quickly. In other words, he was the one who made the first move. In the blink of an eye, the two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle. Of course, Longao knew what it meant for the two of them to join forces. Therefore, as soon as the battle started, Longao immediately used his innate ability, Dragon Roar. Innate ability, Dragon Roar. At the same time, a huge dragon shadow suddenly appeared behind Longao. A shocking scene occurred. The two heavenly saints realized that their bodies were instantly locked in place. Even the flow of time around them began to reverse. What's going on? The fact that Longao had an innate ability was known to everyone in the rank 3 Long clan. Even so, the two heavenly saints didn't put Longao's innate ability in their eyes. Everyone knew. Long family disciples, no matter what rank they were from, had to enter the Long family's ancestral hall to undergo the so-called bloodline baptism if they wanted to awaken their bloodline and reproduce their innate ability. However, what about Longao? Others might not know, but the people of the Long clan knew very well that Longao had never entered the Long family's ancestral hall. Otherwise, Longao wouldn't be standing here right now. Since that was the case, how powerful would the innate ability that Longao had awakened from his bloodline be if he relied on his luck alone? But what was the result? The result was the exact opposite. At this moment, the two heavenly saints had truly witnessed Longao's power. Although they didn't know what Longao's innate ability was, to be able to lock them in place and change the flow of time, such an innate ability was definitely a super existence even in the Long family. As rank 3 heavenly saints of the Long clan, the two of them knew very well how powerful the innate ability that Longao had awakened was. They didn't dare to be careless. Of course, the two heavenly saints knew that if they were the slightest bit careless, they would be doomed eternally. It was precisely because of this that the two heavenly saints used all the strength in their bodies and joined forces to attack the innate divine ability. It had to be said that the two heavenly saints were very powerful. In just a few seconds, before Longao could even attack in the next second, the two of them had already used their own strength to forcefully break through the lock. Before the two heavenly saints could react, Longao's body had already disappeared. The two heavenly saints might not know what had happened, but as bystanders, Long Yang and Long Morwen could clearly see what Longao had done. Longao had disappeared into thin air? What had happened? Long Maoan and Long Yang yelled almost at the same time, "Watch out!" Chapter 676. Be careful behind you. The two heavenly saints seemed to know what had happened after hearing Long Morwen and Long Yang's warning. Neither of them dared to imagine how Longao had done it. However, the battle had already progressed to this stage. If they let their guard down, they would be killed immediately. The two heavenly saints did not even turn around. They knew very well that the moment they turned around, the chances of them being killed would be infinitely greater. Because of this, the two heavenly saints who had just broken free from the lock struck back with their palms. The power of the combined palms of two heavenly saints was unimaginable. Longao cursed Long Morwen and Long Yang in his heart. He even cursed their ancestors. Longao knew very well that if it had not been for Long Yang and Long Morwen's warning, he believed that he would have successfully killed the two heavenly saints by now. However, he had already lost the best opportunity. If it had been anyone else, they would have retreated and looked for a new opportunity once they had lost their chance. However, Longao was different. Longao was such a person. Without hesitation, he used the Divine Dragon Arm and the Hell Tiger Arm. In the blink of an eye, the two sides had already collided. His fist shook heaven and earth. Boom! With a loud bang, both sides were sent flying. However, the three heavenly saints, who were natural martial artists, forcibly stopped in mid-air. The two heavenly saints' faces were extremely gloomy as they stared at the youth in front of them. Until now, the two heavenly saints still did not dare to imagine that the other party was so powerful. If it had not been for Long Yang and Long Morwen's warning, they believed that the two of them would have been killed by the other party. Was this for real? Before this, the two heavenly saints were full of confidence that they could easily kill the other party. However, they were absolutely unwilling to accept the result of this battle. Longao. Before the two of them could speak, Longao spoke first. If it had not been for the two of them, you would have already lost. It didn't even take 5 moves. Hearing this, the two heavenly saints' faces turned ugly. What the other party said was right. They had no rebuttal. They did not even know how to refute him. If I were you, I would go back and buy 2 pounds of tofu and slowly kill you. Pu. Hearing Longao's mockery, the two heavenly saints even had the heart to die. They couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. However, they knew that this matter couldn't be spread out. Otherwise, where would their dignity go? Where would the Long family's face go? Longao, no matter what, you will die today. Really? Looking at Longao's strange smile, Long Mowen and Long Yang felt a chill in their hearts. Could it be that Longao still had a trump card? It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. However, the two of them knew that since things had come to this point, no matter what, Longao had to die. It was precisely because of this that the two heavenly saints did not continue to talk nonsense. At this time, with the lesson learned from the previous incident, the two heavenly saints immediately used their killing moves, not giving Longao the slightest chance. This time, Longao did not continue to use his innate ability and spatial teleportation. He already had 2 trump cards. If he caught them off guard, he believed that he could kill the two of them in an instant. However, it would be difficult to do so once the two of them were on guard. Longao continued to punch with his fists. With the help of the divine desolation body, Longao could be considered to have the upper hand. Boom, boom, boom. Longao's strength had far exceeded everyone's knowledge. Before this, no one had thought that Longao would be so powerful. It was also because of this that Longao's strength had completely disrupted the Long family's plans. Long Mowen and Long Yang had even forgotten their heartache and the fact that they had already lost 8 Earth Saints. At this moment, the two of them only had one wish, and that was to defeat Longao. No matter what happened, no matter what price they had to kill him and get rid of all future troubles. Long Mowen had even decided that if the two heavenly saints could not defeat Longao, then in the end, they would have to ask for help from stronger warriors in the family, which were the so-called Saint Kings, Saint Emperors, or even Saint Sovereigns and Saint Emperors. However, unless it was absolutely necessary, Long Mowen was not willing to do so. As the head of the Long family, Long Mowen had to think about the family's interests at all times. If news of this were to spread that they had to summon warriors above the Saint Kings to deal with Longao, the Long family's reputation would be ruined. Sometimes, reputation was more important than anything to the Long family. Head of the family, I'm afraid that the two elders won't be able to defeat Longao. Although he did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of him. Longao was gradually gaining the upper hand. If this continued, the two elders would definitely lose. How could Long Mowen not know what Long Yang was implying? Did they really have to ask for help from the family's experts? If that was the case, where would the family's reputation go? As the head of the Long family, Long Mowen had more considerations than Long Yang. Waving his hand, Long Mowen said with a serious expression, "Let's wait and see. Head of the family, if Longao kills the two heavenly saint elders, our losses will be unbearable." The concept of a heavenly saint was completely different from that of an earth saint. It could be said that the status of a heavenly saint could not be replaced by 10 earth saints. They had already lost 8 earth saints. If they were to lose 2 more heavenly saints, then the Long family would really have to hide in the toilet and cry. Even so, Long Maoan still could not make up his mind. Ever since he had become the head of the Long family, he had never encountered such a situation. A small Longao had caused a huge commotion in the family and caused them to lose all their reputation. The battle between Longao and the two elders had reached its climax. Were they really going to lose the two elders? Just as Long Maoan was about to take action, the battle suddenly turned around. Longao was wielding his blood-sucking broadsword and attacking the two elders like a storm. Taking advantage of the fact that the two elders could not hold on any longer, Longao used his innate ability, Dragon's Roar, for the second time. When the two elders' bodies were locked in place, the flow of time around them started to reverse. Since the battle had already reached this stage, it seemed impossible for the two elders to break free from the lock even if they wanted to. They would not be able to escape death. Seeing the situation, Long Maoan and Long Yang panicked. At this point, it seemed impossible for them to find help even if they wanted to. Were they really going to lose two Heavenly Saint experts? The Long family really could not afford to lose two Heavenly Saint experts. If the two elders were really killed by Longao, how would they be able to face the ancestors of the Long family? Just as Longao's bladelight was about to devour the two elders, a terrifying force swept them away, causing Longao's bladelight to miss and fail to kill the two Heavenly Saints. Chapter 677. Everyone's face lit up when they saw the elder who had suddenly appeared. The two heavenly sages, Long Yang and Long Maoan, immediately bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Elder Ancestor." Elder Ancestor? The Elder Ancestor who had suddenly appeared was none other than the strongest person in the Long clan, Long Yang. He was also the so-called titled Great Emperor. Long Yang and Long Maoan had not expected the Elder Ancestor to suddenly appear. After all, the Elder Ancestor had not appeared for so many years. Because of this, the two of them clearly knew that the Elder Ancestor had come out this time mainly for the youth in front of them. Although Long Maoan's face revealed a hint of surprise, he still felt helpless and depressed. In the end, they had forced the Elder Ancestor to act. This was already embarrassing for them. "You are Longao? And who are you?" Longao could clearly sense the strength of a titled Great Emperor. Because of this, he was fully on guard and prepared at all times. He also did not know when the Elder Ancestor would act. "I am Long Yang." Long Yang? Longao was not unfamiliar with this name. He believed that in the 9 states, the name Long Yang would not be unfamiliar. He was one of the only 4 titled Great Emperors in the 9-state spirit region. "Longao, you are very arrogant." There wasn't the slightest bit of anger, but anyone could imagine that Long Yang, as the ancestor of the Long family, wouldn't be willing to let the matter go. "I don't want to talk about who is right and who is wrong. If you want to fight, let's fight." "Ha ha ha, what a good I don't want to talk about who is right and who is wrong. What a good if you want to fight, let's fight. Longao, among all the young people I have met, you are the one with the most character. You are also the one with the best talent." Longao did not interrupt because he did not know what Long Yang wanted. "Maoan, what happened just now? You have to answer truthfully." Hearing the Elder Ancestor's words, Long Maoan's heart trembled. What did the Elder Ancestor want to do? He didn't dare to hide anything. After all, at this moment, Long Maoan didn't know what the old ancestor wanted. After all, he knew very well that if the old ancestor wanted to, not only could he strip him of his position as the clan leader, he could even kill him. Then, Long Savior told him everything that had happened. 99% of it was the truth. After hearing this, Long Yang nodded, and his face began to look a little ugly. "According to what you said, Longao can't be blamed for this." Long Yang's heart skipped a beat. Long Yang had completely stumped Long Maoan. For a moment, he did not know what to do. Slap. At this moment, a slap rang out. Long Yang looked at the old master before him in shock. He covered his face with his right hand in disbelief. He had not expected the old master to slap him all of a sudden. Just what in the world was going on? Even Long Maoan and the other two were completely stunned. They all looked at the old master dumbfoundedly, let alone Long Yang. Long Ao coldly looked at the scene in front of him, but still did not say anything. This was because he also wanted to see what kind of medicine Longao was selling in the gourd. It was also because of this that Longao became more and more afraid of Longao. His intuition told him that this person was not simple. Longao, I asked you to assist Maoan in managing the Long clan. Yet, you attacked Master Long without any reason. What is the meaning of this? Old Master. Longao waved his hand, not giving Long Maoan any chance to speak. He coldly snorted and said, "Could it be that you want to sow discord and turn us against the dragon sect?" Longao was speechless. He did not know what to say. The situation had changed completely. Originally, he thought that the old master would kill Longao directly if he personally stepped in. But now, the old master was obviously helping Longao. Whether it was Longao, Long Maoan, or the two heavenly saint ancient martial art practitioners, none of them knew what had happened. They thought that the old master had betrayed them. However, the four of them knew very well that no matter who betrayed them, the old master would not betray them. Since that was the case, what did the old master mean by this? He snorted heavily, scaring Longao so much that he trembled. Master Long, the situation is very clear. Everything was caused by Longao. You have to know that the Long clan has never intended to be enemies with the dragon sect. We have always been good friends. What do you think? What did Longao mean? Not to mention Long Maoan and Longao, even Longao was a little confused. He did not know what Longao meant. Although he didn't know, since there was no need to start a war, Longao naturally wouldn't rush. After all, with his current strength, he really couldn't compete with the entire Long family. Just Longao alone was enough to give him a headache. That's right. I came here this time mainly to ask about the whereabouts of my parents. Longao attacked me without distinguishing right from wrong. I was merely acting in self-defense. Please take a seat. Longao also did not have the slightest bit of politeness and directly sat down. Master Long, I have thought about your parents. With the current strength of the dragon sect, there is only one possibility for them to kidnap your parents without anyone knowing. I would like to hear more. Supreme Dao martial art practitioner. Longao had already guessed what Longao was talking about. It was nonsense. The problem now was that he did not know where this Supreme Dao martial art practitioner came from and what grudges he had with him. Why didn't he come for him, but his parents? Longao knew clearly that if this person had the strength to kidnap his parents without anyone knowing, it was enough to prove his strength. If that was the case, why didn't he attack him directly? Longao could not think of a reason no matter how hard he thought about it. It was too strange. Brother Long, of course I know it was done by a Supreme Dao martial art practitioner. I just don't know who he is. Brother Long. Hearing Longao call the old ancestor Brother Long, Long Maoan and Longao had the urge to go up and kick him. He was King shameless. At the same time, they were furious. Because of this, they were inferior by many generations for no reason. But with the old ancestor as an example, Longao and Long Maoan did not dare to say anything. They did not know what the old ancestor meant. Was he helping them, or Longao? It seems like this person has no ill intentions. Once a Supreme Dao martial art practitioner has his eyes on you, I believe no one in the dragon sect is a match for him. Apart from Longao and Long Haosha, no one else knew about Long Baishan's existence. It was also because of this that Longao became more and more unable to understand. According to the old ancestor's divine realm strength, who could have such powerful strength to be able to take away his parents without anyone knowing and even disappear with the old ancestor? Chapter 678. Master Long, are you suspecting that the four forces are behind this? He shook his head. Longao said bluntly, with all due respect, the four forces don't seem to have any Supreme Dao warriors. Everyone knew that the four forces didn't have any Supreme Dao warriors. It wasn't a secret. No matter what, Supreme Dao warriors were the most powerful warriors in the world. Long family, Heaven and Earth sect, and WN Shou sect were the exceptions. That was why Longao wasn't angry at all. Master Long, you're right. The four of us don't have any Supreme Dao warriors. So, what happened to your parents wasn't done by us. Longao didn't say anything. He just sat there quietly because he knew that Longyang must have something else to say. As expected. Longyang thought for a while and continued, Master Long, I think we should write off the grudge between you and the Long family. How about that? He sneered in his heart. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew what Longyang meant. If it was in the past, would the Long family say something like that? No matter if others believed it or not, he would never believe it. In the end, the Long family did this because they were afraid of his strength. However, Longao didn't refuse because he knew the rules of survival in this world. Nodding, Longao said, I don't have any grudge with the Long family. It's just that you don't want to let me go. Since Brother Long has spoken, I won't argue with you. F***ck hearing Longao's words, the five of them cursed in their hearts. However, things had already come to this point. Even if Long Yang and Long Maoan were unhappy and unwilling, they could only listen obediently and didn't dare to say anything. All right, Master Long. Since you're so straightforward, we have a deal. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for me. Thank you. Longao didn't stay any longer. He got up and left. Looking at the disappearing figure, Longyang's face instantly turned cold. His body emitted a murderous aura which scared the four of them. They didn't know what had happened to their ancestor. Which before Longao could speak, Longyang had already snorted coldly and said, You can't do anything right. Longao, you have to remember that we have already lost our best chance. Moreover, killing Longao now will not do us any good. He shuddered. For a moment, he could clearly sense that the old ancestor in front of him wanted to kill him. If it weren't for his identity and bloodline, he believed that he would have been dead by now. Long Yang, that was just a temporary measure. The current Longao is no longer the same as before. If we kill this person, once the Dragon Sect's corpse slave army goes all out against us, then we will really be in a passive position. Understood, ancestor. Hearing the old ancestor's explanation, Long Yang heaved a sigh of relief. At the end of the day, the old ancestor was still on his side and not helping Longao. He had been scared silly just now. Ancestor, what should we do now? Although he didn't understand the old ancestor's meaning, the old ancestor had already personally stepped in. Even if Long Yang was the clan leader, he couldn't control Long Yang. In other words, as long as Long Yang interfered in this matter, Long Maoan would be like a puppet. Long Maoan was very unhappy, but his identity and strength were there, so he could only be a little unhappy. Wait and see. Wait for Longao to make his move. Long Yang and Long Maoan didn't really understand the old ancestor's words. Both of them looked at him curiously. The Dragon Sect's strength is enough to threaten any of our clans. If Longao leads the Dragon Sect to fight against the other three clans, then we can just sit back and reap the benefits. Isn't that better? So that's how it is. At this moment, Long Maoan and Long Yang finally understood the old ancestor's meaning. He wanted to watch the fight from the sidelines. However, when he thought of the 8 Earth Sacred Realm experts that they had just lost, Long Maoan's expression turned ugly. All right, don't let this matter spread. Understood. An hour later. Clan leader, are we just going to let this go? What else can we do? The old ancestor has already spoken. We can only do as he says. Do you understand? Long Yang said coldly. Clan leader, I believe you've already seen the strength and talent that Longao has displayed. If this continues, I believe that it won't be long before Longao surpasses our clan. When that time comes, what should we do? How could Long Maoan not know the worry in Long Yang's words? However, since the old ancestor had already spoken, what else could he do? Did he have to go against the old ancestor's wishes? However, the old ancestor was the #1 person in the Long clan. In other words, no one dared to disobey the old ancestor, including the clan leader. Long Yang, do you have a plan? Long Yang nodded and smiled coldly. Clan leader, if we act in secret, the old ancestor might not know. Instantly, Long Maoan understood what Long Yang meant. As long as we send out 2 Saint Kings, I believe that Longao will definitely die. When that happens, we can rest easy. Even if the old ancestor finds out, What's done can't be undone. I believe that the old ancestor won't kill us. For the clan, we can only take the risk. Saint King level warriors were extremely rare in the Long family. Unless they had no other choice, the Long family would not use the so-called Saint King warriors. However, both of them knew that Longao's cultivation had officially broken through to the Heavenly Saint realm. If they sent out Earth Saints and Heavenly Saints, it would be almost impossible to kill him. They might even lose them for nothing. Because of this, both of them knew that the only way to assassinate Longao was to send out super warriors. At the very least, they had to be Saint Kings. However, Long Yang and Long Maoan knew very well what two Saint Kings represented. If it weren't for the fact that they had no other choice, they wouldn't casually use the clan's resources. You're right. Long Ao is too unpredictable. In just a few months, Long Ao has reached the Heavenly Saint realm. Just as you said, at this speed, Long Ao will surpass us sooner or later. So, we have to take the risk. Clan leader, have you decided? Long Maoan nodded. He had no other choice because he was very wary of Long Ao. To be precise, Long Maoan was panicking. As an old fox, Long Maoan had never experienced something like this before. If word got out, probably no one would believe it. Gritting his teeth, Long Maoan said coldly, "It's decided. Go find Long Xing and Long Yu. Remember, tell them not to let the old ancestor know about this. Tell them the severity of this matter. I believe they won't refuse." Understood, clan leader. Chapter 679. After leaving the third-rank Long family, Long Ao did not leave the nine-state spirit domain. This time, he had made an agreement with Long Yang that the grudge between the Long family and the Dragon sect would be written off. Although Long Ao was very clear in his heart that the grudges between him and the Long family could not be written off just like that, at least he could take a breather. It was very difficult to deal with the four forces working together. That was why Long Ao was prepared to deal with them one by one. It was not the Long family, and he believed that it was not the other three families. If that was the case, Long Ao could not figure out who did it. Who knew how long it would take for him to comprehend the way of divination. Long Ao knew that the longer he delayed, the more danger his parents and ancestors would be in. He also could not find the clairvoyant. First, even if he went to find the clairvoyant might not tell him. Second, it would take too long to travel from Tianju to the outer sea. He could not afford to wait. That was why Long Ao was prepared to search for the clairvoyant himself. There was no target, not even the slightest clue. Hey! At this moment, Long Ao's heart skipped a beat. He quickened his pace and disappeared without a trace in a short while. Long Xing and Long Yu were the two Saint Kings of the third-rank Long family. At the same time, they were husband and wife. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people would not be able to ask for their help. However, Long Maoan was the head of the Long family, so no matter what, they would give him face. "Brother Xing, Long Ao is missing. Humph, a mere heavenly saint. The head of the family is making a big fuss by asking you and me to help." Long Xing did not take Long Ao seriously at all. In his opinion, a mere heavenly saint did not need the two of them to do anything. It was a waste of talent. If this matter were to spread, where would their dignity go? "Brother Xing, the legend of Long Ao is right there. For this child to be able to grow to this extent in just a few short years, there must be something extraordinary about him. Therefore, we should still be careful." He did not think much of it. It was still that sentence. From start to end, Long Xing did not place Long Ao in his eyes at all. "All right, I know what to do. The most important thing now is to find Long Ao as soon as possible and end the battle quickly." Long Yu nodded. Seeing that her lover did not listen to her advice, there was nothing she could do. Following that, the two of them began to search for their target. In the distance. In a dark place. Long Ao did not leave. Seeing the two saint rulers suddenly appear, Long Ao obviously knew what had happened. The Long clan is truly shameless. Long Ao had already thought of the shamelessness of the Long family, but he never thought that the Long family could be this shameless. He had thought that since Long Yang had come personally, The Long family would keep their word no matter how despicable and shameless they had been in the past. However, he had not thought that the Long family would still send 2 Saint Kings to kill him. If it was an ordinary warrior, Longao would not have taken them seriously. However, the problem now was that the other party had 2 Saint Kings. Not to mention teaming up, he was not even a match for one of them. If he wanted to leave, with Longao's strength, it would be a simple matter. However, Longao still did not choose to leave. The reason was simple. Since the Long family was not benevolent, they could not blame him for not being righteous. No matter what, he had already made an agreement with the ancestor of the Long family, Longyang, that their past grudges would be written off and they would not interfere with each other in the future. However, the Long family had turned their backs on him. If he could swallow this insult, not to mention others, just himself, he would deeply despise himself. Because of this, Longao had already decided that no matter what price he had to pay, he would kill the 2 Saint Kings. He wanted to let the Long family see what the consequences of being shameless were. However, Longao did not act rashly. No matter what, the other party was still 2 Saint Kings. Once they fought, his chances of winning were not high. Therefore, Longao was thinking of various methods to see how he could successfully kill the 2 Saint Kings. Within the dragon seal space, Longao went straight to the point and said, "Long Fu, is there any way for me to successfully kill the 2 Saint Kings?" Of course, Long Fu knew exactly what his master meant. After thinking for a while, Long Fu said, "Master, with your current strength, if you continuously use your trump card, you should be able to fight against a beginner Saint King. However, if it's a higher level Saint King, or 2 of them working together." Although Long Fu did not finish his words, the meaning of his words was clear. Longao also knew about this point. Was there really no way? At this moment, Long Fu suddenly said, "Master, it's still the same method. If you really want to deal with the 2 Saint Kings, you can only borrow the power of heaven and earth." Longao instantly understood what Long Fu was talking about. After thinking for a while, Longao nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. After leaving the dragon seal space, the 2 of them were originally looking for Longao. However, the problem now was that Longao was following them. As 2 dignified Saint Kings, if they didn't know that they were being followed, who knew what they would think if this matter was known by the 2 of them? After searching here and there, they had completely lost track of the other party's whereabouts. "Brother Xing, it seems that this kid has already left. What should we do now?" Long Yu and Long Xing's faces were incomparably ugly. This was because if they couldn't kill Long Ao this time, how were they going to explain it when they returned? Explaining it was a small matter, but losing face was a big matter. As long as this kid doesn't return to the Dragon Sect, we have hope of killing him. Everyone knew that the Dragon Sect had a titled Great Emperor. No matter how arrogant Long Xing was, he definitely wouldn't dare to be arrogant to the extent that he could fight against a great emperor. "Brother Xing, are we going to the 9 provinces now?" Nodding, Long Xing and Long Yu were about to leave. However, at this moment, their faces suddenly changed. Suddenly, the 2 of them laughed out loud. Their laughter was filled with ridicule and contempt. "Long Ao, you really don't know what's good for you." Looking at the youth that suddenly appeared in front of them, although Long Xing and Long Yu muttered in their hearts, relying on their Saint King's strength, they didn't put the other party in their eyes. As everyone knew, the gap between a Saint King and a heavenly saint was huge. It was like a child and an adult. The 2 of them couldn't be compared at all. Snorting coldly, Long Ao was fearless, as if he also didn't put the 2 of them in his eyes. He coldly said, "What a Long family, what a Long Yang. Previously, we had an agreement that the grudges between us would be written off. However, in the blink of an eye, the Long family turned hostile. Such a Long family is really a disgrace." Before Long Xing and Long Yu could speak, Long Ao continued, "If you know what's good for you, get the hell back now. Also, tell Long Yang that there's no need for him to play dirty. I'll teach him when the time comes. As for these shameless things, don't do them in the future. It's disgusting to see them. Get lost." Chapter 680. Get Lost. Looking at the arrogant young man in front of them, Longxing and Long Yu seemed to be unable to react. As dignified Saint King martial artists, they were actually told to get lost by a mere heavenly saint. If this matter were to spread, where would their face be? Longao. Longao is not for you to call. I have already given you two a chance. I will say it again for the last time. Get lost, or else. Although Longao did not finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. The more Longao acted like this, the angrier the two were. The other party simply didn't put him in his eyes at all. It was completely unbearable. What could be tolerated in a secret cave, but not in a chrysanthemum? Since they could not speak and could not win against the other party, they could only fight. This battle was unavoidable. But before the two were ready to fight, Longao suddenly turned and shot away. In a short while, he had disappeared without a trace. Longao ran away. Looking at Longao who suddenly turned and ran, both Longxing and Long Yu were completely dumbfounded. They did not know what had happened. Brother Xing, what happened just now? Longao seemed to be provoking us, but... Before Long Yu could finish, Longxing roared angrily, I want to kill him. Pretentious. Longxing and Long Yu were not fools. Of course, they knew that Longao was not provoking them at all. He was just putting on an act. After all, the other party's strength was there. Unless there was water in his brain, it was impossible for him to provoke the two of them. Endless anger. Monstrous anger. The two of them felt that they had been fooled. Endless anger and monstrous anger made the two of them chase after him without saying anything. With Longao's speed and the help of spatial teleportation, as long as Longao was willing, he could get rid of the two of them at any time. But at this moment, Longao seemed to be deliberately slowing down. After a while, Longao's heart thumped and the corner of his mouth slowly curled into a sneer. They finally caught up. Sensing the two auras approaching him, Longao was not afraid at all. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised. Because everything had already been arranged, they were just waiting for the east wind. Longao, I'm going to tear you to shred. Ignoring the two of them, Longao shot forward with all his might. An hour later, the three of them had already entered the dense forest and entered an extremely secluded valley. Longxing and Long Yu entered the valley and suddenly lost Longao's aura. However, the two of them clearly knew that their target was definitely here. Brother Xing, I feel that something is not right about this. Why don't we, waving his hand, before Longxing could finish speaking, Long Yu had already said, a mere heavenly saint, I want to see what tricks he can play. Overconfidence is conceit. I really don't understand. What gave you such confidence? Looking at the young man slowly walking out, Longxing and Long Yu finally felt that something was wrong. Under normal circumstances, the other party should have left long ago. Why did he appear again and again? Could it be that there was some conspiracy? Although he knew that the other party was playing tricks, Longxing still did not put Longao in his eyes. The reason was very simple. In Longxing's heart, Longao was like a child. There was no need to worry about him. Longao, I have to say, you're really not afraid of death. Before Longxing could finish speaking, Longao suddenly looked at Long Yu and asked, You're his wife? Although she did not know why the other party was asking her, Long Yu still nodded. Oh, I really want to ask you. Do you know that your husband is so retarded? Hearing this, Longxing and Long Yu were furious. Endless anger turned into rolling fist shadows. The two of them did not care about their reputation and directly attacked at the same time. They were prepared to end the battle quickly, kill the other party and bring him back to the Long family. In Longxing's opinion, no matter what kind of conspiracy, it was just a joke in front of absolute strength. That was indeed the case. If it was an ordinary person, all tricks would be a joke in front of absolute strength. However, Longao was different. It was because of this that the fate of the two of them was already decided. Since he had already chosen to borrow the power of heaven and earth, Longao naturally would not be so stupid to fight force with force. Just like this, Longao used spatial teleportation and constantly moved around the two of them. The two of them could only be angry and could not catch up to the other party. Longao, are you a man? If you're a man, Stop and have a fair fight with us. Long Xing and Long Yu could not figure out how the other party did it. As for a fair fight, Longao snorted coldly. At this moment, a terrifying sound of thunder suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. Sure enough. Sometimes, Longao even suspected that Long Fu was also proficient in the so-called Tao of divination. Otherwise, why would Long Fu be able to calculate the phenomenon of heaven and earth every time, allowing him to arrange everything? Before Long Xing and Long Yu could figure out what was going on, Long Ao suddenly stopped. Long Ao's sudden action really shocked the two of them. Not running anymore. Run your ass. Long Ao immediately activated the formation. Following that, the sound of thunder rumbled between heaven and earth, and directly fell on the two of them. If the two of them were prepared, they believed that they would be able to avoid this calamity. However, the two of them did not put Long Ao in their eyes from the beginning to the end. Without even having the chance to react, the two of them were directly killed by the thunder and lightning. However, Long Ao chose to make a move at this time. Not letting the thunder and lightning devour the two corpses, Long Ao withdrew the array. The thunder and lightning of heaven and earth lasted for half an hour before the torrential rain gradually disappeared. Looking at the two corpses on the ground, Long Ao's face was full of murderous intent. Murderous intent. Originally, he did not want to choose to fall out with the Long family at this time. After all, his parents were not found yet. However, Long Ao knew that the Long family had bullied him. If he took another step back, there would be no end. Long Yang, it was your Long family that was shameless first. Don't blame me for not being moral. The corner of Long Ao's mouth slowly curled up into a sneer. He grabbed the two bodies from the ground, and without even thinking about it, he headed in the direction of the Long family. If Long Ao's actions were known by others, it was unknown whether or not he would be scolded for having water in his brain. Long family, main hall. Long Maoan did not know why, but he kept feeling that something was going to happen in his heart. Patriarch, what's wrong with you? Shaking his head, Long Maoan said helplessly, Long Xing and Long Yu will be fine, right? Long Yang obviously knew what the family meant, but he felt it was a little funny. He said, Patriarch, you're thinking too much. How strong is Long Ao and the two elders? Unless Long Ao can make another breakthrough in cultivation in a few days and reach the Saint King realm, is that possible? Chapter 681. That was impossible. Neither Long Yang nor Long Maloan believed that Long Ao could break through from the Sky Saint realm to the King Saint realm in just a few days. Even so, Long Ao's cultivation speed was already unbelievable. Patriarch, don't worry. This time, the two elders will definitely be able to kill Long Ao and eliminate all future troubles. Long Maoan nodded. Although he knew that Long Ao was no match for the two elders, Long Maoan still had a bad feeling about this. It was as if something was about to happen. Long Yang, get out here. Long Yang, get out here. At this moment, a scolding came from outside. Hearing the scolding, Long Yang and Long Malawan's expressions changed drastically. They looked at each other in disbelief. In an instant, their faces were filled with endless anger. Long Ao was simply provoking the Long family. If this could be tolerated, what could be tolerated? After a short while, everyone from the Long family, including the people from the other forces, came out and looked at the young man in the air. At this moment, Long Yang, Long Maloan, and the others appeared. Long Ao, what is the meaning of this? Long Yang's expression was extremely ugly. Long Ao was provoking the Long clan. He didn't care about the Long clan at all. If this matter wasn't resolved properly, the Long clan would lose all face. Ha ha ha, Long Yang, I don't know if you've forgotten our agreement. Both Long Yang and Long Forsaken's faces darkened when they heard the words. Their faces were as ugly as they could possibly be. Others might not know the meaning of Long Ao's words, but how could the two of them not know? One had to know that according to the agreement between the old ancestor and Long Ao, the grudges between the two sides were written off. But in the end, they sent out two Saint Kings to kill Long Ao. Where were the two Saint Kings? At this moment, Long Maloan couldn't care less about Long Xing and Long Yu. Instead, he said, Long Ao, Who do you think you are? How dare you behave so atrociously in the Long clan? I'll make sure you don't leave alive today. Waving his hand, Longyang nodded and said, Of course I remember. The grudge between you and me is written off. From now on, we will mind our own business. Is it really written off? Longyang was very curious. He didn't know what Longao meant. However, at this moment, both Longyang and Long Maoen's expressions changed. This was because two people had suddenly appeared beside Longao. How could Longyang and the others not recognize the man and woman? Longyang did not know what was going on, but Long Maoen and Longyang did as well. Because of this, Longyang and Long Maoen could not figure out why Longxing and Long Yu had appeared. What had happened between them? Why didn't he kill Longao? Everything was so strange. Longyang, don't tell me you don't know what happened. Longyang was no fool. Of course, he could guess what had happened. Turning around, he glared at the two and asked, Is this your doing? Since things had come to this point, Long Maoen did not continue to hide it. He nodded and replied, Elder ancestor, Longao has been looking for trouble time and time again. If I let him off easily, how am I going to answer to the family? I've already said that the grudge between the Long clan and Longao will be written off. Are you not going to listen to me? Hearing Longyang's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. He could tell that this matter had nothing to do with Longyang. But no matter what, things had already come to this point. He had no way out. Putting everything else aside, if the Long clan knew about the two corpse slaves by his side, it would be very, very difficult for him to leave. Old ancestor. Waving his hand, Longyang said coldly, We'll talk about this later. After saying that, Longyang turned around and looked at the youth in front of him. His voice was still gentle as he said, Longao, I've already said that the grudge between us will be written off. Long Maoen made the decision on his own. I'm sorry. Ha ha ha, sorry? Longyang, you really know how to joke. If I kill you and then apologize to you, would you be willing to do so? Arrogant. One had to admit that Longao was really arrogant. After all, Longyang had already lowered his head. However, he still refused to let it go. This made Long Maoen furious. He roared angrily, Longao, don't be so shameless. Who do you think you are? This time, Longyang did not say anything. He felt that Longyang really did not know what was good for him. Even if the Long clan was in the wrong this time, as the old ancestor of the Long clan, he had already said such words. Anyone would just let it go and leave. But what about Longyang? If the Long clan gave in, wouldn't it be telling everyone that the Long clan and he were afraid of the person in front of him? Although he did not want to completely fall out with Longao at this time, Longyang was not afraid of a real battle. Everyone thought that Longao would back off. However, at this time, Longao suddenly said, I don't have anything. However, there are two people who despise you and want to talk to you. Longao had just finished speaking when Longxing and Long Yu suddenly stood up. Longxing, Long Yu, come back. According to Longyang's status, the two of them would most likely retreat immediately when they saw the old ancestor. However, this time was an accident. The two of them directly ignored Longyang. Longxing coldly snorted and said expressionlessly, Longyang, let me ask you. Since you and Senior Longao have made an agreement that the grudge will be written off, you shamelessly sneak attacked Senior Longao. As a member of the Long clan, even I feel embarrassed for you. Why don't you just kill yourself? Hearing Longxing's words, everyone was dumbfounded. Especially Long Maoen, who looked at Longxing in shock. He did not know what was going on at all. Elder Longxing, have you gone mad? I'm crazy. Ha ha ha. King dare to say that I'm crazy. I think water must have entered your head. Long Maoen, under your leadership, the Long clan is getting worse and worse. As the clan leader of the Long clan, I've always wondered if you're a fool. You're courting death. Longyang stopped the furious Long Maoen. Longyang had already realized that something was wrong. Under normal circumstances, Longxing would not have dared to speak to him like this. What's more, Longyang discovered that at this moment, Longxing's eyes were empty, as if his soul had been seized by someone. Although he didn't know how Longao did it, Longyang could still see the clues with a glance. Longao, what have you done? I'd advise you to let go of the two of them. Otherwise. Chapter 682. This is their wish. What does it have to do with me? Shrugging his shoulders innocently, Longao took 3 steps back and coldly watched everything unfold before him. Longyang, don't you F***king dawdle here. I don't F***king like you. Before Longyang could speak, Long Yu, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, Brother Xing is right. Other than hiding in a rat hole to cultivate, what else do you know how to say? Commanding from behind. I don't even want to talk to someone like you whose brain is full of water. Catcher. Longyang clearly knew that all of this was Longao's doing, but he still couldn't help but move his palms to kill the two of them. Longao, you're courting death. You can't blame anyone else. Mph, Longyang, even your Long clan doesn't like you. I'm very doubtful that your Long clan has the face to continue living in this world. How sad. Longao, Xiao wants to be pretentious here. Do you think I don't know your little tricks? Longyang cursed in his heart. Longao suddenly looked at Long Maoan and said, whether it's your decision or Longyang's betrayal, it only shows that your Long clan is shameless. You're trash. Longao, I'll kill you. At this moment, a figure suddenly shot out from behind. It was a Saint Emperor. Longao was finished. Seeing the Saint Emperor attack, everyone could already see the result in their hearts. Longao would be directly killed by this Saint Emperor, and he would not even have the chance to fight back. Not to mention others, even Long Maoan and the others were 100% sure that Longao would die this time. A Saint Emperor was a powerful existence that a heavenly saint couldn't compare to. But just as this Saint Emperor shot out, Long Yu and Long Xing, who had just been killed by Longyang, suddenly stood up and fought with the Saint Emperor. As Saint Kings, even if the two of them joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for the Saint Emperor. But the problem now was that whether it was Long Xing or Long Yu, the two of them were no longer humans, but real corpse slaves. The greatest advantage of corpse slaves was that they were immortal. Because of this, the two of them didn't fear death at all. Every move they made was a killing move. In this way, the two of them were actually on par with the Saint Emperor. What the hell happened? Looking at the two who had come back from the dead, everyone was shocked. They didn't know how Long Xing and Long Yu could come back from the dead. It was simply inconceivable. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed it. He seemed to have thought of something. If by Longyang had also heard of the Dragon Sect's undead army. From the beginning to the end, the 4 major forces were extremely wary of the Dragon Sect. That was why Longyang chose to put aside his grudge with Longao for the time being. But he didn't expect that Longao would be so strange. In such a short period of time, Long Yu had refined the two of them into puppets. You can't do anything right. The two of them shrugged helplessly. It would be a lie to say that they didn't feel heartache for the 2 Saint Kings being refined into corpse slaves. But so what? Old ancestor, what should we do now? Things had already come to this point. Long Maoan didn't know what to do. After all, they had already lost 2 Saint Kings. If they continued to lose them, even the Long clan wouldn't be able to bear it. Longyang also knew that it was pointless to punish Long Maoan at this point in time. After thinking about it, Longyang gritted his teeth and finally said, "Come back." The Saint Emperors who were fighting were also shocked. When they heard the old ancestor's words, they didn't dare to stay any longer and rushed back. Looking at Long Xing and Long Yu who had been refined into puppets, Longyang's anger reached its peak. He was like a volcano that could erupt at any time. But in the end, Longyang suppressed it. Longao, my Long clan was in the wrong first. What do you want to do? Longyang had given in. Everyone knew that Longyang's surrender meant that the entire Long clan had given in. What did that mean? One had to know that the Long clan was one of the 4 major forces of the 9-state spirit domain. With their power and status, even if the other 3 major forces came, the Long clan wouldn't care, let alone a small Longao. That was why everyone couldn't understand why the Long clan had given in. Could it be that they were afraid of Longao? Or were they afraid of the two puppets? That wasn't very likely, because with the Long clan's strength, it would be easy for them to kill Longao if they wanted to. After all, Longyang was a bona fide titled Great Emperor, the strongest martial artist in the 9-state spirit domain. But the result was, not only did the Long clan not kill Longao, but they also gave in. Everyone was confused and didn't know what the Long clan was trying to do. Hearing that Longyang had finally given in, Longao didn't want to make a big deal out of it. No matter what, it wasn't the right time for him to fall out with the Long clan. There was no benefit in doing so. If he was alone, Longao wouldn't be afraid of anything. He could do whatever he wanted. But the problem now was that he wasn't alone. He had the entire dragon sect behind him. Without the old ancestor, he could only rely on his grandfather and the Fire Chileen. Once the Long family attacked, the dragon sect would be in great danger. It would also give the other three factions an opportunity to take advantage of. Longyang, you and I had an agreement to let bygones be bygones. But Long Maoan and Longyang went back on their word. What would you do if you were me? Clenching their fists, Long Maoan and Longyang couldn't take it anymore. But the old ancestor had already given in. What could they do? I don't know. You don't know, but I do. But seeing that we have a good relationship, Long Maoan, Longyang, I'll give you two a chance. Kneel down and admit your mistakes. Kneel down. Admit their mistakes. What was Longao trying to do? Longao didn't care about the Long clan at all. No matter what, Long Maoan was the head of the Long clan. Once he kneeled down and admitted his mistakes, it would mean that the Long clan had bowed down to him. Would Long Maoan agree? Without a doubt, Long Maoan wouldn't agree. At the very least, even if Long Maoan agreed, Longyang would not agree. He would rather have a big war than do something like this. Longyang's voice was extremely gloomy. He said coldly, Longao, don't go too far. Feeling the murderous aura from Long Maoan, Longao wasn't afraid at all. He smiled calmly and said, Longyang, don't be angry. I was just joking. As the head of the Long clan, although Long Maoan is a little shameless and despicable, he's still a human. Chapter 683. Longao's words were already overboard. If it was anyone else, they would have died here. However, Longao wasn't afraid because he had the ability to teleport. Even if it was a titled Great Emperor, he was confident that he could escape successfully. That was why Longao acted this way. He wanted everyone to see that the Long family wasn't as scary as they thought. Longao. Waving his hand, Longao sneered before Long Maoan could say anything, trash. Looking at Longyang, Longao continued, Longyang, the grudge between you and me will be written off for now. I hope that there won't be any more mishaps with this agreement. Otherwise, I will destroy the Long family at all costs. With that, Longao turned and left quickly. Looking at the disappearing figure, Longyang's face was extremely gloomy. It was as ugly as it could get. In the main hall of the Long family, old ancestor, Longao refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. He didn't even take us seriously. If we don't get rid of him, where will the Long family's reputation go? Long Mo Wen and Long Yang could be considered to be extremely furious because Longao's ruckus this time had completely humiliated the Long family. It was still the same. If they didn't get rid of him, the Long family wouldn't be at ease. However, Longyang snorted and said coldly, the two of you acted on your own accord and put the Long family in a passive position. Seeing that the old ancestor wasn't too happy, the two of them didn't dare to say anything. They stood where they were, trembling in fear. Longao and I stopped for a while to restrain the other three forces. When the time comes, they will bite each other and we will be able to reap the benefits. But now, our plan has been disrupted by you. So that was the case. How could Long Maoan and Long Yang not know what the old ancestor was talking about? However, Longao's cultivation speed was too fast. If this continued, who knew what would happen in the future? After thinking for a while, Long Maoan finally said, Old ancestor, we know what you mean. But plans can't keep up with changes. Longao's development is obvious to all. With this speed, I can say that he will become a titled great emperor in less than 3 years. When that time comes, how should we deal with him? Family head is right. Old ancestor, as far as I know, the dragon sect now has a great emperor and a titled great emperor. If Longao becomes the third titled great emperor, even if the 4 of us join forces, we might not be a match for the dragon sect. Hearing their words, Longyang began to ponder. Seeing this, the 2 of them were overjoyed. Striking while the iron is hot, Long Maoan continued, Old ancestor, if we don't remove the roots, they will grow again. For the benefit of the family, I have no choice but to do this. It doesn't matter if I sacrifice myself. I'm just worried that this kid is growing too fast. Of course, the 2 of them knew about the old ancestor's plan. If it was an ordinary person, they would believe that this plan would work. However, Longao was different. After all, Longao's development speed was too fast. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. Finally, Longyang nodded and said helplessly, You spoke too fast. I didn't think it through. This kid is not an ordinary person. We can't treat him like an ordinary person. Old ancestor, Longao is on guard now. If we want to succeed, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Originally, if they could successfully kill Longao this time, not only would they be able to remove the roots, but they would also be able to regain their family's reputation. It was a win-win situation. However, they had lost the opportunity. Who knew where Longao had gone? As for the dragon sect, to be honest, neither Longyang nor Long Maoan dared to go there. This was because everyone knew that there was a titled great emperor and a great emperor in the dragon sect. If that's the case, no matter what, we can't let Longao leave here alive. Old ancestor. Longao is too unpredictable. Even Long Xing and Long Yu were turned into puppets. Looks like he's not simple. Bring me Chen O. Long Chen? Long Chen had gone to the Long family not long ago. Not only had he successfully awakened his gifted superpower, his cultivation had also improved tremendously. In a short period of time, he had broken through the heavenly saint realm and reached the so-called king sage realm. Everyone in the Long family was extremely excited about Long Chen's rapid improvement. With Long Chen's cultivation speed, they believed that it wouldn't take long for him to become a great emperor and even break through to the Supreme Dao stage. A Supreme Dao stage martial artist was definitely a top existence in the Jojo continent. Once Long Chen became a Supreme Dao stage martial artist, the Long family's status would also rise. At that time, even the other 3 major forces would have to be wary of the Long family. In a short while, Long Chen had already entered the main hall. Long Chen first bowed to the 3 of them and asked, Old ancestor, are you looking for me? He went straight to the point. Longyang and the other 2 didn't know about the relationship between Long Chen and Longao. Otherwise, who knew what the 3 of them would think? Chen I believe you know about the grudge between the family and Longao. Now, I want you to kill Longao. Can you do it? Long Chen's heart sank. Of course, Long Chen wasn't willing to do it. In his heart, he had already treated Longao as a true friend. Now that he was asked to kill a friend, would he agree? Before Long Chen could speak, Longyang continued, I'll give you 2 people. No matter what, you have to bring back Longao's body. Longyang and Long Maoan left, leaving Long Chen alone in the main hall. Longao, who had left the Long family, slowly curled his lips into a cold smile. He didn't leave but entered the Dragon City, which was the biggest city under the Long family. In a luxurious restaurant. It was empty. If it was any other time, there would be a sea of people. But at this moment, the restaurant was empty because Longao was here. Now, Longao was considered a celebrity. Everyone knew about him. How many people dared to barge into the Long family alone and make the old ancestor of the Long family apologize personally? Longao, you shouldn't stay. Seeing Long Chen suddenly enter, Longao seemed to be very surprised. But he still smiled and pointed to the seat beside him, saying, Please sit. Long Chen didn't stand on ceremony and sat down. At the door stood 2 people. They were the 2 Saint Kings sent by Longyang. This time, in order to successfully kill Longao, Long Yang had put in a lot of effort. Previously, they had already lost Long Xing and Long Yu. If they lost 2 more people, then the few Saint Kings in the Long family would all die. This was a price that the Long family couldn't afford to lose. But Longao's development was so fast that Long Yang was already afraid. So, he didn't care about anything else. If it wasn't for Long Chen, Long Yang believed that Long Yang would have directly sent Saint Emperors. In the end, Long Yang trusted Long Chen. But thinking about it, it made sense. Long Chen was not only a dragon warrior, but he had also awakened a special ability. P.S. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival everyone. Chapter 684. Looks like Long Yang is going to fart again. Long Chen sighed deeply. Long Chen couldn't stand what his family had done. They had already agreed to write off the grudge between them, but they went back on their word and did it again and again. Once this got out, would the Long family still have any credibility? Longao, do you treat me as a friend? Longao smiled and said, if I didn't treat you as a friend, I wouldn't be sitting here and wasting time with you. I believe we would have already started fighting. Ha ha ha, you're right. Cheers. The 2 of them raised their cups at the same time and drank. Looking at the 2 Saint Kings at the door, Long Chen suddenly said curiously, Longao, I'm very curious. With your strength, it seems impossible to kill Saint Kings. I want to ask, how did you do it? Not only Long Chen, but everyone was curious. However, Longao was only in the heavenly saint realm. There was a huge gap between him and Saint Kings. They weren't on the same level at all. Long Chen thought that he couldn't do it at all. Long Chen was shocked by Longao's cultivation speed and talent. He knew very well that the reason he was able to break through to the Saint Ruler realm so quickly was because he had awakened his bloodline reproduction talent superpower. Long Chen's bloodline reproduction talent superpower, but what about Longao? Although he had already awakened the innate ability, he hadn't gone through the bloodline purification. In that case, his talent was far from Longao's. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't envious. However, Long Chen was only envious. He wasn't jealous or hateful. Long Chen, I treat you as a friend, so I won't hide this from you. The reason why I could kill 2 Saint Kings was all because of the might of heaven and earth. The might of heaven and earth. Long Chen seemed to be very curious. He didn't know how Longao had used the might of heaven and earth to kill 2 Saint Kings. Longao really treated Long Chen as a friend, so he didn't hide much. He told him everything about how he had set up a formation and used the lightning of heaven and earth to kill the 2 Saint Kings. After listening to it, Long Chen was shocked. Longao, so you're also a formation master? Seeing Longao nod, Long Chen swallowed his saliva. Of course, he knew what a formation master meant. A formation master was an extremely rare existence in the world. There were even rumors that a formation master could kill 8 people at once. It was even rumored that once a Nihility martialist became a powerful array master, he would be able to kill enemies with the help of array formations. Before this, he hadn't really believed this. However, Long Chen finally understood that such a thing really existed. However, Long Chen also knew that he could not be both a formation master and a martial artist. In other words, it was impossible for him to have any achievements in both the martial Dao and the Dao of formations. No matter how talented a person was, it was impossible for them to achieve this. But what about Longao? Longao's achievements in the martial way were already obvious to all. He was definitely the #1 person in the 9 states. As for the way of matrices, just by looking at how Longao was able to eliminate 2 Saint Kings with the help of matrices, one would already know how high Longao's attainments in the way of matrices were. Which was also to say that regardless of whether it was in the martial Dao or in the Dao of array formations, Longao was a first-rate existence. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes and heard it from Longao, he wouldn't have believed that there was such a talented person in this world. Longao, I have a presumptuous request. I don't know if you're willing to agree. I can't do it. Without waiting for Long Chen to speak, Longao already knew what he wanted to do. Just as expected. The Dao of formation. Once, I also wanted to cultivate the Tao of formation, but I didn't have a good master. Longao, why don't I be your disciple and you teach me the Tao of formation? Long Chen, I see you as a friend. If possible, I'll teach you the formation. However, I have an agreement with my master. Before I take revenge, I can't teach anyone. So, I'm sorry. He didn't continue to argue. Long Chen smiled and said in a low voice, Longao, now that the ancestor insists on killing you, it will be difficult for you to leave Dragon City. Regarding this point, Longao had long expected it. Seeing that Longao wasn't worried at all, Long Chen was even more surprised. Could it be that Longao really ignored the family and the ancestor? Long Yang sent you to kill me? That's right. Then what are you going to do? Since you and I are friends, I won't attack you no matter what. Longao smiled and said, if you don't kill me, how will you explain it to the Long family? Things had already come to this point. Longao was very clear in his heart that he and the Long family had already reached the point where they could not tolerate each other like fire and water. In other words, it was the so-called either you die or I die. However, it involved Long Chen. What should he do? How could Long Chen not know what Longao was thinking in his heart? For a moment, the two of them didn't speak. They just drank and drank. In a short while, the two of them had drunk a few jars of wine. With their strength, no matter how much wine they drank, it was impossible for them to get drunk. Chen, you've disappointed me. Hearing the sudden voice, Long Chen's body trembled. At this moment, Long Yang, Long Maoan, and Long Yang slowly walked in. The three of them didn't look good. The three of them had never thought that the most outstanding disciple of the family would get along so well with Longao. It was obvious that the two of them were friends. Ancestor, uncle. Am I still your uncle? Didn't you promise us before? But now, not only did you not kill him, you're sitting here drinking with him. If this matter were to spread, where would the Long family's face go? Long Maoan scolded and continued, Longao killed two Saint King elders of the Long family and caused trouble in the Long family. We won't take revenge for this. Without waiting for Long Maoan to finish, Longao waved his hand and sneered, Long Maoan, do you have any shame? I thought that as the overlord of the spirit domain, the Long family wouldn't be so shameless. You have to remember, it wasn't me who wanted to write off everything. It was Long Yang who said that from now on, all the grudges between us would be written off. But what happened? Long Maoan was speechless. On the surface, you wanted to write off everything with me, but secretly sent Long Xing and Long Yu to assassinate me. If I hadn't found them in time, I would have been a corpse now. Long Chen is here. I want to ask who is right and who is wrong. Is the Long family shameless enough to talk to me about losing face? I'm very puzzled. Does the Long family still have any face left? Chapter 685. Longao, you're arrogant. Today, I'll let you know the price of arrogance. Long Maoan was truly enraged. He couldn't wait to tear Longao into pieces. As the head of the Long family, he had to bear all the responsibility for this. If he didn't get rid of this kid, he wouldn't have the face to continue being the head of the Long family. But at this moment, Long Chen suddenly stood up and said uncomfortably, Ancestor, uncle, I want to ask you a question. Ask. Ancestor, Longao just told me that you told him to write off the grudge between you two. Is that right? That's right. Since things had come to this point, Long Yang didn't want to hide it anymore. No matter who was right or wrong, the person in front of him had to die. Long Chen looked very disappointed and said helplessly, Ancestor, our Long family is one of the 4 major forces of the spirit domain of the 9 states. Other than our strength, what's more important is our reputation. How could Long Yang not know what Long Chen wanted to say? His face darkened. If it wasn't for Long Chen's talent and strength, Long Yang believed that at this moment, Long Yang would have killed him. No matter what, Long Chen had not only awakened his bloodline, but he was also a dragon martial artist. With the combination of the two, as long as Long Chen had time to develop, with Long Chen's talent, he would soar into the sky one day. Thinking of this, Long Yang wasn't angry at all. Instead, he tried to persuade him. Chen, you've finished your business. You can leave. Could he leave? Long Chen knew very well that once he left, the ancestor and uncle would definitely attack Longao. Although he already knew that Longao was a powerful array master, no matter what, the ancestor's strength was there. Once the battle started, Longao would have a high chance of being killed. Although he didn't like the way the Long family did things, he was still a member of the Long family. In other words, whether it was the Long family or Longao, he didn't want to see anything happen. Because of this, Long Chen naturally wouldn't choose to leave. Grandfather, please let Longao go. Impossible. The more Long Chen acted like this, the more Long Yang wanted to kill. Long Chen, you go first. I'm fine. As a friend, Longao didn't want to make things difficult for Long Chen. No matter what, if Long Chen was here, even Long Yang wouldn't be able to do anything. Longao knew very well that Long Chen wouldn't leave. But at this moment, Long Yang suddenly attacked. He didn't give Long Chen the slightest chance. He had a Saint Emperor take Long Chen away. Longao, do you really think you're invincible? Although Long Yang was very surprised by Longao's strength, he was still a mere heavenly saint. Even if he had the strength to kill a holy king, a heavenly saint was still a heavenly saint. Long Yang was full of confidence. As long as it was not a supreme Dao warrior, he had no fear. Supreme Dao martial artist. Was Longao a supreme Dao martial artist? Ai. Letting out a heavy sigh, Longao's face was filled with disdain, because he had discovered a problem. No matter how much he said to such a shameless person and shameless family, it was like playing the lute to a cow. Kill. Just as Long Yang finished speaking, two figures suddenly shot out from behind him. This time, Long Yang had brought two holy emperors with him to end the battle quickly. Unless there was no other choice, Long Yang would definitely not personally attack. Again, he was still the Long clan's old ancestor. If he casually attacked, especially against a mere heavenly saint, it wouldn't be good if word got out. The Long clan had many experts. Holy kings, holy venerables, and holy emperors were everywhere. There was no need for him to attack. Not daring to be careless, Longao prepared to fight back, but he was already sent flying by the two holy emperors. His body was like a kite with a broken string, violently flying backwards. If it weren't for the desolate divine body, just this alone would have been enough to kill Longao. Because of this, both Long Yang and Long Maoan were extremely shocked when they saw that the two holy emperors couldn't take care of Longao. They increasingly felt that Longao wasn't simple. Kill. Yes, old ancestor. The two holy emperors felt ashamed that they didn't manage to kill Yi Shiwen in one strike. The difference between a heavenly saint and a holy emperor was too big. If they couldn't take care of Yi Shiwen, it would be a huge loss of face. Just like this, the two holy emperors attacked again. One strike after another, each strike was vicious. They didn't give Longao any chance at all. In just a few minutes, Longao had already been hit several times. Longao knew that if this continued, he would definitely die in less than 30 strikes. After all, the difference in cultivation level couldn't be made up for by other things. Long Yang, I'll definitely pay you back double for what you did today. Want to leave? Just as he finished speaking, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Longao, who had been there just a moment ago, suddenly disappeared into thin air. Nobody knew what had happened to Longao. What was going on? In the next second, Longao appeared outside the restaurant. Longao had used spatial teleportation 3 times in a row. Even if Long Yang attacked personally, he might not be able to catch up with Longao. Spatial teleportation was also Longao's biggest trump card. Kill. Long Yang was very shocked. He didn't know how Longao did it. Long Yang asked himself in his heart. If it was him, would he be able to do it? Without a doubt, he was 100% sure that he couldn't do it. Not to mention him, even a supreme Dao warrior wouldn't be able to do it. The two holy emperors stood there in a daze. Hearing Long Yang's roar, they shuddered. They didn't dare to be careless and immediately rushed out of the restaurant. But in the end, as soon as the two of them came out, everyone, including Long Yang and the others, looked at Longao, who had already disappeared. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what had happened, because no one could figure out how Longao did it. How could he disappear into thin air? Old ancestor, Longao. Long Maoan swallowed his saliva. He didn't know how to describe Longao, because he had never seen or heard of such a thing before. Not to mention Long Maoan, even Long Yang didn't know how Longao did it. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Longao, Longao. Long Yang's lips slowly curled into a cold smile, because he realized that Longao had a lot of secrets. If he could catch this person and get his secrets, it would be beneficial for him and his family. Thinking of this, Long Yang said, "Send out a kill order. No matter what, kill this person and bring back his corpse." Chapter 686. Longao's strength had completely shocked everyone in the Long family, especially Longao's sudden disappearance. It was unheard of. The Long family issued a kill order. In an instant, the entire spirit region of the 9 states began to change. The Nether Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and Imperial City turned a blind eye to the grudge between the Long family and Longao. They looked as though they were watching a good show. The 3 families almost unanimously recognized the fact that no one could stop Longao's rise. Not to mention one family, even if the 4 families worked together, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Moreover, the other 3 families were naturally willing to watch Longao and Imperial City fight each other. It would be best if both sides suffered heavy losses. At that time, the 3 families would be able to reap the benefits. Normally, the Long family wouldn't be so reckless and give the other 3 families a chance to take advantage of the situation. However, things had already developed to this stage. The Long family knew that if they couldn't deal with Longao, their status and reputation would be greatly reduced. However, Long Yang had personally taken action this time. This meant that the entire Long family had no way out. It could be said that the Long family had turned out in full force this time. All the experts were searching for Longao's whereabouts. In the Imperial City, the strongest experts of the 4 major forces, the only 4 titled Great Emperors, Wei Lin Great Emperor, Shunhe Great Emperor, Netherworld Great Emperor, and Longyang Great Emperor, sat together. "Longyang, we can't fulfill your request." How could the 3 titled Great Emperors not know what Longyang meant? The 3 of them despised Longyang in their hearts. Things had already developed to this stage. If the 3 families were to get involved, they would be asking for trouble. The 3 of them weren't fools. That was why Longyang's expression was very ugly. After thinking for a while, he said, "If the 3 of you are willing to help, I can promise you that if you can successfully kill Longao, each of you will get a drop of Divine Dragon Blood Essence. How about it? Divine Dragon Blood Essence." Hearing these words, the 3 Great Emperors' expressions changed at the same time. The 3 of them knew very well what the Divine Dragon Blood Essence represented. Without a doubt, the 3 of them had already reached the titled Great Emperor level. If they could obtain the Divine Dragon Blood Essence, it would be indescribably beneficial to their cultivation. On one side was Longao, and on the other was the Divine Dragon Blood Essence. How should he choose? For a moment, the 3 of them fell into deep thought. Long Yang didn't urge them because he had full confidence that it would be very difficult for the 3 people in front of him to resist the temptation of the Divine Dragon's Blood Essence. Not to mention the 3 of them, even a true Supreme Dao warrior might not be able to resist such a temptation. He was very reluctant in his heart because he had kept the 3 drops of Divine Dragon Blood Essence for many years. He had originally planned to keep them for himself, but in order to deal with Longao, he had no choice but to take out the 3 drops of Divine Dragon Blood Essence. However, the result almost made Long Yang go berserk. "Brother Long, I'm sorry, but we still can't agree." "Why is that?" Long Yang couldn't understand whether the 3 of them had lost their minds or not. After all, no one could resist the temptation of the conditions that he had just proposed. Moreover, if the 4 major forces joined hands, killing Longao wouldn't be a difficult thing. "I'm sorry, this has always been between you and Longao. It's not convenient for us to intervene." Long Yang shrugged helplessly. Since things had come to this point, Longao didn't continue to stay. He got up and left quickly with a cold snort. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. This time, Longao didn't leave quickly. I'm afraid this matter is going to be troublesome. So what if he doesn't leave quickly? Do you think we're fools? Anyone with a discerning eye can see that Longao is no longer the same as before. Moreover, Longao and the Long family have already reached a situation where either you die or I die. Why should we intervene? It's simply asking for trouble. Brother Wei is right. In any case, Longao is too unpredictable. We can't let him go no matter what. Netherworld Great Emperor's words were agreed by the other two. Although the three of them looked very harmonious on the surface, they each had their own ulterior motives. If they could kill each other, they believed that none of them would be soft-hearted. Longao still hadn't left the nine-state spirit domain. It could be said that he turned a blind eye to the Long family's pursuit order. The nine-state spirit domain didn't have the power of the Dragon Sect. Sin City was his headquarters, but Longao had taken away thousands of divine Tao inheritances from the Grave of the Gods. Longao was very clear that the power behind the Grave of the Gods was very terrifying. If he went back, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? Sin City, Long family, Longao didn't care about anything. The reason was very simple. His parents, Long Yi and Mu Lin, were still missing. Even the old ancestor who had reached the heavenly god realm had also disappeared. From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't know what had happened and who was behind it. He didn't know where to start. At the peak of a mountain, Longao stood quietly, looking at the endless void in the distance. His face was filled with worry. The other party was too strong. Longao couldn't imagine. If the other party was so strong, it wouldn't be difficult for them to destroy the Dragon Sect. But they didn't do that. They only took his parents and the old ancestor. What did they mean by that? Just like that, Longao stood at the peak of the mountain for an entire night. 7 days later, Longao suddenly received news that his parents had returned to the Dragon Sect. Surprised, Longao didn't stay any longer. He rushed to the Dragon Sect as fast as he could. On the way, he met with the Long family's attacks and killed them all. After a few attacks, the Long family suffered heavy losses. Long Maoan and Long Yang were extremely angry, but they didn't dare to attack the Dragon Sect rashly. Longao was defeated, but the other three major forces were overjoyed because the four major forces had been fighting openly and secretly for countless years. Everyone wanted to kill each other and thus dominate the entire spirit domain of the 9 regions. Because of this, the Nether Mansion, the Imperial City, and the Ethereal Palace continued to sit and watch. They were waiting for the Long family to anger the Dragon Sect. When that time came, there would be a good show. In the end, what made the three forces feel helpless was that the Long family actually endured it this time. It seemed that they wouldn't be able to see a situation where both sides suffered heavy losses. But this time, Longao's counterattack made the four forces see Longao in a new light. He created the Long family alone. Not only did he kill 2 Saint Kings, but he also left under the nose of Longyang, a titled Great Emperor. What did this mean? Not only that, in the end, the Long family was even afraid of Longao and did not dare to kill him. Just this point alone, Longao already had the upper hand, and the Long family could be considered to be at a disadvantage. If this continued, the Long family would be unlucky sooner or later. How could the Long family not know about this? How could Longyang not know? P.S. 3 chapters a day. The outbreak will officially start on the 15th and will continue until the end of the month. Chapter 687. The Spirit Region of the 9 States. In the main hall of the Long clan. At this moment, Longyang's expression was ugly to the extreme. The Long clan had issued a kill order, but they had failed to kill Longao in the end. Although no one mocked them to their face, Longyang knew very well that the Long clan had lost all face. All of this was because of one person, and that was Longao. Elder, according to reliable sources, Longao has successfully returned to the Dragon Sect. What should we do now? Long Maoan and Long Yang asked carefully, because all of this had exceeded the Long clan's knowledge. No one could have imagined that Longao was so powerful. He looked like a heavenly saint, but in reality, he could kill a sacred king. Even a sacred emperor could not kill him. With this person's talent and cultivation speed, if he was not eliminated, there would be endless trouble in the future. Long Yang knew this, and so did Long Maoan and Long Yang. Longao, there are too many variables. Just as you said, this person must die. Long Maoan and Long Yang still did not speak, because they did not know what to say at this point. Maoan, if we attack the dragon sect with all our strength, what are our chances of winning? Elder, forgive me for being blunt. Long Maoan thought for a moment and said, Long Ao scared away Wei Ling and Shen He. The first time, Long Ao turned into a demon, and the reason is unknown. The second time, if I'm not wrong, he should have borrowed the power of the dragon sect. What do you mean? Elder, I don't believe that Long Ao could rise so quickly just because of luck. I've already asked around about Long Ao's past. Next, Long Maoan told him about Long Ao's matter in detail. After listening, Long Yang nodded and said, if that's the case, it seems that this person must have gotten some kind of opportunity to rise so quickly. I understand what you mean. This opportunity is in the dragon sect. That's right. So what if it was in the dragon sect? Everyone had already guessed that Long Ao's rise was definitely not due to luck and the so-called hard work. They believed that the biggest reason was because of an opportunity. They clearly knew that the opportunity was in the dragon sect, but how many people dared to go there? Back then, Emperor Shen He had been scared off by Long Ao. Although Emperor Shen He hadn't said much, anyone who understood what had happened would be able to guess. Because of this, the dragon sect was becoming more and more mysterious. No one knew what kind of existence existed within the dragon sect. Ancestor, let's observe first. We can't act rashly. If there are any losses, only the 3 clans will benefit. Long Yang was well aware of this. 9 states, dragon sect. Long Ao had just returned to the dragon sect when he received the news that his parents had returned safely. Overjoyed, he immediately went to find them. After confirming that they were safe, he let out a long sigh of relief. Before Long Ao could ask what was going on, his heart skipped a beat. After bidding farewell to his parents, Long Ao immediately entered the back of the mountain. Enveloped by a white light, he disappeared without a trace. Inside the cave, looking at the old ancestor in front of him, Long Ao asked impatiently, Old ancestor, what exactly happened? Where did you and my parents go? Although the old ancestor and his parents had returned safely, Long Ao didn't know why, but he had a feeling that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Otherwise, the old ancestor wouldn't have looked so serious. It was very dangerous this time. Sit down, I'll tell you slowly. Nodding his head, Long Ao found a place to sit down. Then, Long Batian recounted everything that had happened in the past few days without leaving out anything. After listening, Long Ao clenched his fists tightly. His face was filled with killing intent. One could imagine how terrifying the anger in Long Ao's heart was. Old ancestor, since the Long family wants to deal with me, why don't they do it openly? With the Long family's strength, they could easily destroy the dragon sect. Why do they have to do this? According to what the old ancestor said, Long Ao finally knew who was the one who did it this time. Long family. Previously, Long Ao had guessed that this might be the Long family's doing. But after thinking about it, Long Ao denied his guess. The reason was simple. The Long family was too strong. As one of the strongest forces in the world, the dragon sect couldn't possibly go against the Long family. In other words, based on the strength of the Long family and the dragon sect, the Long family could destroy the dragon sect in a matter of minutes. Because of this, Long Ao never thought that the Long family would do such a thing. You're oversimplifying things. After thinking about it, Long Batian said, your rise has exceeded the Long family's understanding. If it were an ordinary person, the Long family would kill them. But you're different. Long Ao didn't speak. He sat there quietly and listened. Because there were some things that he couldn't figure out, but the old ancestor knew. Your talent and growth speed are obvious. Plus, you've already rebuilt the dragon sect. The Long family isn't stupid. They can't bear to kill you, but if they don't kill you, they're afraid that you'll betray them in the future. So the Long family wants to use my parents to threaten me? Long Batian nodded and continued, as long as they take your parents away, you can grow as you wish. When the time comes, you'll have to listen to the Long family. So that was it. In addition to anger, Longao was more solemn. Because the other party wasn't an ordinary force, and it wasn't an existence that the four major forces could contend with. The Long family. Even if all the forces in the 9 states were combined, they wouldn't be a match for the Long family. At this moment, the Long family had their eyes on him. It seemed that he was in trouble, big trouble. This time the Long family thinks highly of you. That's why they sent 2 supreme Dao warriors. Fortunately, I didn't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Otherwise, the Long family would have succeeded this time. Thank you, old ancestor. Longao didn't dare to imagine. If his parents were really taken away by the Long family, wouldn't he become very passive? The consequences would be unimaginable. Just as the old ancestor thought, if his parents were controlled by the Long family, no matter what he did, he wouldn't be able to escape from the Long family's palm. Just thinking about it made him feel scared. Waving his hand, Long Batian sighed deeply and said, Long family's 2 supreme Dao warriors, I didn't kill them. Again, before your strength reaches a certain level, you can't provoke the Long family. Otherwise, once the Long family wants to kill you, you'll be in big trouble. Old ancestor, I really want to know, what level have I reached to be able to contend with the Long family? Longao wanted to know about this point, because according to the old ancestor's strength, he couldn't contend with the Long family. One could imagine how terrifying the Long family was. Chapter 688. If you can reach the height of Long Tian, I believe that you will be the strongest besides the marvelous mathematician and Tian Dao. Pucci. Longao naturally knew who the Long Tian that the old ancestor spoke of was. That was the old ancestor of the Long clan. What a joke, if he could reach the height of Long Tian, not to mention himself, the Long family would not dare to trouble him. It was useless to ask. Ancestor, then what should I do now? Wait and see. The Long family did not make it clear. It seems that they still don't want to deal with you, so you can just pretend that this matter did not happen. As if thinking of something, Longao suddenly said, Ancestor, you dealt with 2 supreme Dao warriors this time. Isn't that telling the Long family that you are still alive? Thinking of this, Longao's heart thumped. Longao knew clearly about the grudges between the ancestor and the Long family. According to the ancestor, the reason why he fell was all because of the Long family. If the Long family knew that the ancestor was not dead at all, it was easy to imagine what would happen. Long Batian smiled. Don't worry. It's just 2 little supreme Dao warriors. I don't have to show up. I see. Although Longao was relieved that his parents returned safely, he became more dignified. Long family, how should he deal with the Long family? You can put it down. Long family will not deal with you in a short time. As far as I know, the Dragon Clan is about to face a great tribulation once in 10 years. According to the past practice, this time will last as long as a year. Great tribulation? Was it the Tian Dao? No matter what, Long family could not deal with him in a short time. It was always a good thing. At least he had enough time to prepare. Did you gain anything from your trip to the 9-state spirit domain? Not knowing what the ancestor was referring to, Longao roughly told him about his trip to the 9-state spirit domain and the battle with the Long family. You have to speed up. Understood. After chatting with Longao for a while, Longao left the cave. As soon as he returned, Longao was called by Long Haosha. He went straight to the point and asked, let me ask you. Does this matter have anything to do with the Long family? The older, the wiser. Longao did not continue to hide the truth from his grandfather. He told his grandfather everything that the old ancestor had said just now without changing a word. Sure enough, it seems that the Long family can't bear it anymore. The reason why the Long family is like this is all because of you. So from now on, you have to be extra careful. Longao was well aware of his grandfather's worries. Longao felt warmth in his heart because he knew that no matter where he went, no matter what time it was, only family would never change. As for everything else, it was all nonsense. Grandpa, I know. Your mother was taken away this time and seemed to be in shock. Go and accompany her. Nodding his head, Longao stayed by Mu Lin's side for the next few days. Gradually, Mu Lin began to regain her senses. This time, Longao finally understood a truth, and that was no matter how fast he and the dragon sect developed, in front of the Long clan, he and the sect were still nothing. So everything still depended on strength. According to the old ancestor, the Long family would not have the energy to deal with him for at least a year. He could make use of this time to develop the strength of the dragon sect. Divine Dao inheritance. According to Longao's plan, he would first train the 300 people in the family to become Divine Dao martial artists. Then, he would slowly select people to receive the Divine Dao inheritance. But now, time was not waiting for him. So, Longao decided to speed up the inheritance process and carry out more than 1,000 Divine Dao inheritances at the same time. There were advantages and disadvantages to speeding up the process. The biggest disadvantage was that he did not know who would defend the dragon sect to the death. After all, a Divine Dao inheritance was not a joke. So, Longao was clear that this matter must be strictly monitored. There must not be the slightest mistake. Finding Dugu Bai, Long Potian, and the rest, Longao told them the general idea. After hearing this, everyone was endlessly shocked. Because everyone was very clear on what a Divine Dao inheritance represented, let alone 700 Divine Dao inheritances. If everyone received a Divine Dao inheritance, wouldn't it mean that the dragon sect would have more than 1,000 Divine Dao martial artists in the future? What kind of concept was that? Just thinking about it made them excited. All of you, remember, no matter who it is, you must be strictly monitored. I don't need to say more about what a Divine Dao inheritance means. I believe you all know it in your heart. Since that's the case, from now on, all of you will work harder. I want to gather enough people in the shortest time possible. At this time, Ghost King Ao Tian suddenly stood up and said, Master, finding people is not a problem, but the problem now is, once all of us receive the inheritance, what will happen to the dragon sect? Ghost King's meaning was actually very simple. Those who received the Divine Dao inheritance would definitely be the dragon sect's most outstanding disciples. 700 people were practically the foundation of the dragon sect. Once all of them chose to go into seclusion, how would the dragon sect protect itself? Nodding, Longao indeed did not think about this problem. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed a problem. That's the only way. From now on, the dragon sect will immediately lock down and transfer all of the Divine Dao inheritances underground. Longao was very clear that once the Divine Dao inheritances were accepted, they would be the key targets of the dragon sect's protection. Nothing must happen to them, because if there was a war with the Long family in the future, this would be the foundation. Therefore, he could only choose to transfer these people, and the best way was to completely lock down the news. This way, not to mention the Long family, even the disciples of the dragon sect might not know about it. Comparatively speaking, the Divine Dao inheritances would be very safe. Master, this method is feasible, but there is still a problem. The grudge between us and the four major forces will have to be resolved sooner or later. If we transfer and the four major forces attack us, how will we deal with it? This was a very realistic problem. After all, the strength of the four major forces was there. Even if the four major forces could not compete with the Long family, they could not be underestimated. Moreover, according to the grudge between the two sides, everyone could be sure that the four major forces would come sooner or later. Therefore, the question raised by Ghost King hit the nail on the head. The four major forces, of course, Longao would not forget the four major forces. Especially this time, he had completely fallen out with the Long family. Longao was completely sure that the Long family would not let this matter rest. Just as Ghost King said, if the four major forces came, How could he resist? Formations. Suddenly, Longao thought of the formation. It seemed that only the formation could help him temporarily resist the 4 major forces. As long as he waited for 3 to 5 years, he would be able to destroy the 4 major forces in a matter of minutes. Chapter 689. Regarding formations, the current Longao had already reached a very high level of attainment. Longao was very clear in his heart that it was not a simple matter to rely on the strength of the sect to withstand all kinds of dangers. Therefore, formations were the only way and the best way. Array masters were divided into level 1 array masters, level 2 array masters, level 3 array masters, level 4 array masters, level 5 array masters, level 6 array masters, level 8 array masters, and level 9 array masters. Above level 9 formation masters were King Formation Masters, Emperor Formation Masters, Supreme Formation Masters, Emperor Formation Masters, and God Formation Masters. Longao had officially become a Supreme Formation Master. It was also because of this that Longao was confident that he could start to set up higher level formations. According to all the formations left by his master, Longao thought about it and decided to overturn all the previous formations and set up 10 new formations that were linked together. The 10 formations were the 9 heavens 10 earths slaughtering formation, 10,000 ghost soul devouring formation, everlasting chaos formation, nirvana void lifeless formation, 3 lives 3 death soul dispersing formation, hidden dragon divine annihilation formation, 6 wheels wraith formation, boundless tornado illusion formation, 12 divine wraith formation, and 3 lives 3 death soul dispersing formation. Next, Longao started to set up the 10 formations with all his might. It was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to set them up. At this moment, apart from setting up the formations, Longao also had to fully comprehend the 5 elements heaven devouring art and divine divination Tao. 5 elements heaven devouring art. Divine divination Tao. Longao knew very well that apart from cultivating his own body, the other 2 most important points were to comprehend the divine divination Tao and cultivate the 5 elements heaven devouring art. Back mountain. Longao's body suddenly disappeared. This time, for some unknown reason, Longao's teleportation distance had doubled and it was even faster. It was as if it happened in the blink of an eye. Longao's body appeared again. Unable to conceal the pleasant surprise on his face, Longao was extremely excited in his heart, because he never thought that the combination of spatial teleportation and earth elemental art would be so powerful. Longao was very clear in his heart that if he were to cultivate the earth elemental arts under normal circumstances, it would be very, very difficult to comprehend. It could even be said to be extremely difficult. However, after a period of continuous exploration, Longao finally discovered a problem. That was the fusion of spatial teleportation and earth elemental art. In other words, as long as a certain part of the body came into contact with earth elemental power, the speed and direction of spatial teleportation would increase. This was something that Longao had never expected. Since the earth elemental art could fuse with spatial teleportation, then what about the metal elemental art, wood elemental art, water elemental art, and fire elemental art? Although Longao had not truly entered the 5 elements heaven swallowing mantra, he was able to double the power of his teleportation with the help of the 5 elements heaven swallowing mantra. This could be considered a small gain. The 5 elements heaven swallowing mantra was indeed the most powerful cultivation technique and martial skill in the world. Just comprehending the surface of it was not an easy task. Longao continued to cultivate the earth elemental art, quietly sensing the surrounding earth elemental power. Longao, get out here for this young miss. Tongling-er's voice instantly spread throughout the entire dragon sect. Those who heard her voice were all shocked. Before they could react, a beautiful figure had already entered the dragon sect. Longhaosha appeared. Looking at Tongling-er in front of him, Longhaosha was not surprised at all. Because before this, Longao had already told him that if there were no accidents, Tongling-er would kill her way to his door. Just as expected. What one feared would happen. Although Longhaosha's cultivation had broken through to the Great Emperor realm, he was still a Crimson Grade Great Emperor. However, he was still a genuine titled Great Emperor. The difference between the two of them was huge. Lady Tong, Aoa is not back yet. Please calm down. Chimph, lying to me? Tong Ling snorted coldly. Previously, when she was shaken off by Longao, Tong Ling got angrier the more she thought about it. Other than unwillingness, she was even more furious. Because she had never thought that she would be played by Longao. Lady Tong, I did not lie to you. Aoa has not returned since he left. If you have something to discuss with Aoa, why don't you tell me first? When Aoa returns, I will inform him. How about it? Longao was obviously in the dragon sect, but Longhaosha was lying through his teeth. If this matter was known by the rest of the dragon sect, what would they think? However, Longao really did not have any way to deal with Tong Ling. As the saying went, it was better to avoid trouble. Tong Ling, of course, did not believe him. She suppressed the anger in her heart and said coldly, I have already asked around. Longao has already returned to the dragon sect. Longhaosha, I advise you to mind your own business. You are not qualified in front of me. Indeed, he was not qualified. If an ordinary person said that, they would have died long ago. However, Tong Ling was different. As a titled Great Emperor, Tong Ling was indeed there. Great Emperors were divided into 11 ranks. From low to high, they were divided into Crimson Great Emperor, Orange Great Emperor, Yellow Great Emperor, Green Great Emperor, Cyan Great Emperor, Blue Great Emperor, Purple Great Emperor, and lastly, Titled Great Emperor. The difference between each rank of Great Emperor was huge, not to mention the difference between Crimson Great Emperor and Titled Great Emperor. Looking at the young lady in front of him, Longhaosha's face was extremely ugly. Because the old ancestor would not appear under normal circumstances, only the Fire Chelene could go against Tong Ling in the entire dragon sect. Longhaosha, I will ask you one last time. Where is Longao? Just when Longhaosha didn't know what to do, Longao suddenly appeared. He looked at Tong Ling and said, Why are you looking for me? As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. After being played by the other party once, Tong Ling was simply depressed to the extreme, and also extremely angry to the extreme. However, before he could make a move, Longao continued, I have something to talk to you about, come with me. Tong Ling was confused, but she didn't want to kill Longao. She nodded and said coldly, If you don't give me a reasonable explanation this time, I will annihilate your dragon sect. Aoa. Grandfather, I'm fine. Longao smiled and left with Longao. Dragon sect, Back Mountain. Longao, I want to hear your explanation now. Chimph, you said that you would bring me along. Why did you ditch me? I didn't explain. There is only one reason. What I was going to do was very dangerous. I couldn't bring you along. You are Yu Yin's junior sister after all. No matter what, I can't let anything happen to you. What do you think? So, you are doing this for my own good. Tong Ling obviously wouldn't believe it. However, things had already come to this point. She knew clearly that she couldn't kill the other party, so she could only do this. Smiling, Tong Ling found a clean rock and sat down. Chapter 690. Longao, the grudges between us can be written off, but you have to promise me one thing. What is it? Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he wouldn't agree immediately. What a joke. If Tong Ling wanted him to die, would he really commit suicide? Coward, don't worry. What I want you to do is very simple. Longao didn't say anything. He just stood there quietly. Longao, I've heard about you from senior sister. I really want to know. After 10 years of perseverance, what kind of opportunity did you encounter that allowed you to rise up in just a few months? As long as you tell me, we'll write off our grudges. How about it? Impossible. Without even thinking, Longao directly refused. Because Longao couldn't tell anyone about the dragon seal. Not to mention Tong Ling, even his parents, grandfather, Yu Yin, and Aoshua had never told anyone about it. The dragon seal was Longao's biggest secret. It was also because of the dragon seal that Longao rose up in the face of adversity. Otherwise, the current Longao would probably still be a trash, suffering humiliation and ridicule every day. Without waiting for Tonglinga to continue speaking, Longao already impatiently said, "You must remember, I see that you are Yuin's junior sister, that's why I'm like this. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to stand here. You don't think that I'm afraid of you. You don't need to know about my matters. If there's nothing else, please leave." As soon as he said it, Longao regretted it. No matter what, Tonglinga was still Yu Yin's junior sister. He felt a little sorry for Yu Yin. However, Tonglinga wasn't as angry as he imagined. She suddenly smiled and stuck out her tongue. "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Why are you throwing a tantrum? If you're like this, I'll go back and tell senior sister that she'll ignore you from now on." Looking at the girl in front of him, Longao was completely speechless. It was true that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. No matter what, you would never be able to see through a woman's heart. Longao had always thought that Tonglinga was definitely looking for trouble this time, but now it seemed that Tonglinga was completely fine. What was going on? Shrugging helplessly, Longao did not ask about Yu Yin. He knew that even if he asked, she might not tell him. Otherwise, she would not have waited until now. "Tonglinga, I want to ask you something now. I hope you can answer me honestly. It's best that you don't ask about senior sister. Master has already instructed me that no matter what happens, I cannot tell you anything about senior sister. I'm sorry. It's not about Yu Yin." "That's good. You can ask now." After thinking for a while, Longao said, "The Tianwu continent is divided into the 9-continent spirit domain and the ordinary spirit domain. The 9-continent spirit domain is dominated by the Eastern Imperial City, the Long family in the west, the Nether Underworld Palace in the south, and the Misty Palace in the north. However, as everyone knows, these 4 powers are not the strongest existences. I want to ask, Long family, where are the Heaven and Earth sect and Wan Shou sect?" Longao had always been curious about this question. "You really want to know?" Nodding. "I can tell you, but the main thing is that you're not strong enough. Even if you know, it's useless. It won't be too late to tell you after you break through to the Emperor realm." Fuck. Longao cursed fiercely in his heart. He had the impulse to go up and kick the other party away. He glared fiercely and said, "Since that's the case, I still have important things to do. Please go ahead." Asking her to leave. Longao didn't have the slightest bit of compassion for such a beautiful woman. He didn't give Tonglinga any chance to speak. Longao's battle god left. Looking at his disappearing figure, Tonglinga stomped her foot and said angrily, "Longao, just you wait. One day, I'll make you obedient to me." Longao asked Long Potian to keep an eye on Tonglinga. He knew that although Tonglinga was a titled Great Emperor, she didn't have any ill intentions towards him. Therefore, as long as Tonglinga didn't do anything too outrageous, it was fine for her to stay in the sect. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Tonglinga really didn't leave the dragon sect. She stayed in the sect freely. No matter what Longao was doing, she would find trouble with him every day. In a short span of 3 days, Longao was depressed to the extreme. Because of Tonglinga finding trouble, he was unable to calm down and cultivate. The situation was urgent. Longao knew that he didn't have much time left. He had to set up the 10 major formations as soon as possible and comprehend the 5 elements heaven-devouring technique. However, could he do it now? With Tonglinga's strength, unless the old ancestor made a move, even the fire Chelene wouldn't be able to chase her away. "Master, someone wants to join the sect. Do you know who it is?" Before Longao could ask, Yi Wushuang had already appeared. His expression was a little ugly as he said coldly, "Longao, let's be frank. My 100 drops of dragon blood must have been taken by you. Seeing that we're friends, as long as you hand over the 100 drops of dragon blood, I won't settle this score with you. How about it? 100 drops of dragon blood? How was he going to hand it over?" He sneered in his heart. Ever since he obtained the 100 drops of dragon blood, Longao had asked Long Chong to integrate them. According to Long Fu, as long as Long Qiong could successfully integrate the 100 drops of dragon blood, he would become an ancient divine dragon. He could even surpass the ancient divine dragon. Since that was the case, how could he hand it over? Of course, Longao would not admit it. Brother Yi, I have already said that the 100 drops of dragon's blood were indeed with you when you left. Furthermore, who in our dragon sect would be able to secretly take away 100 drops of dragon's blood from you? I am certain that I am unable to do so. Hearing that, Yi Wushuang's expression turned even more terrible. In reality, Yi Wushuang did not believe that Longao and the dragon sect could take the dragon blood from him without anyone noticing. However, everything pointed to Longao. If it was not Longao, who could it be? After thinking about it, Yi Wushuang still felt that Longao was the most suspicious. It was precisely because of this that Yi Wushuang returned and came to the dragon sect for the second time. If it was anything else, Yi Wushuang might have given up. However, the 100 drops of dragon blood were too important. He had spent decades and scammed to finally collect all 100 drops of dragon blood. But in the end, not to mention Yi Wushuang, he believed that no matter who it was, they would not let it go. At this moment, Yi Wushuang could be said to be desperate. His expression turned cold, and a terrifying force suddenly erupted from Yi Wushuang's body, directly pressing down on Longao. According to the Dragon Sect's foundation, it was easy to kill Yi Wushuang. After all, Long Baishan's strength was not to be underestimated. However, Longao could not do that because even if the patriarch made a move, he was not completely confident that he could kill this person. Chapter 691. Longao had never been able to see through Yi Wushuang. This feeling was very strong. It was precisely because of this that Longao would not act rashly before he was completely confident. This was because he knew very well that if he could not kill him in one strike, once this person escaped, it would be even more difficult to find an opportunity to get rid of this person in the future. Yi Wushuang should be a titled Great Emperor. However, for some reason, Longao had a feeling that Yi Wushuang in front of him was not a titled Great Emperor, but a divine Dao martial artist. Longao gritted his teeth and persevered. He did not resist. Gradually, Yi Wushuang began to look surprised because ordinary heavenly saint martial artists would definitely collapse under his powerful aura. However, what about Longao? It was as if nothing had happened. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it even if he was beaten to death. The aura of heaven and earth. Longao restrained the aura of heaven and earth. From an outsider's point of view, they could not see anything fishy. This way, no matter how Yi Wushuang exerted his strength, Longao would be fine. This was the power of the aura of heaven and earth. In the end, Yi Wushuang stopped and did not continue. Although he did not know how the other party did it, Yi Wushuang knew that if he continued to release his aura, it would be useless and there would be no substantive objection. Longao, I believe you know very well what 100 drops of dragon blood mean. I spent a whole 30 years to collect them all. Longao, if you take them and hand them over, I will remember this favor. It seemed that Yi Wushuang was very nervous about the 100 drops of dragon blood. After all, once he obtained 100 drops of dragon blood, he would be able to successfully refine the divine dragon pill. At that time, it would not be a problem for him to continuously break through. Hope was right in front of him, but it was all for naught. Spreading his hands helplessly, Longao sighed and said, Brother Yi, I know how you feel. Anyone would feel that it's a pity to lose 100 drops of dragon blood, but I still say the same thing. I didn't take them, and I don't have the ability. If Brother Yi still doesn't believe me, you can kill me now. I definitely won't fight back. Yi Wushuang stared fixedly at Longao in front of him. Suddenly, he attacked. Bang! There was a loud bang. Tong Ling Er's body flew backward. If Longao hadn't caught her in time, she would have fallen to the ground. Yi Wushuang. Longao finally knew that Yi Wushuang had come with killing intent this time. It seemed like he had underestimated the temptation of 100 drops of dragon blood. He believed that Yi Wushuang would do anything for 100 drops of dragon blood. Longao, you think you can fool me with your cultivation? You and I both know whether or not you took the 100 drops of dragon blood. I'll give you one last chance. As long as you hand over the 100 drops of dragon blood now, I can write off everything that happened before. Otherwise, I'll slaughter the entire dragon sect and leave no one alive. Hearing these words, Longao's face also became extremely gloomy. Looking at Yi Wushuang before him, Longao had a feeling that Yi Wushuang seemed to know the truth at that moment. How did Yi Wushuang find out? Longao didn't know, but he knew that Yi Wushuang had to obtain 100 drops of dragon blood. Longao, it seems like you're still stubborn. Do you really think that a mere titled Great Emperor can stop me? I'll let you see my true strength. Just as he finished speaking, Yi Wushuang suddenly released a terrifying divine Dao aura that directly enveloped the surrounding space. A divine Dao martial artist. As expected. Longao had guessed that Yi Wushuang wasn't a titled Great Emperor at all, but a divine Dao martial artist. Now, it seemed that his guess was right. Yi Wushuang was not only a divine Dao martial artist, but he was also a heavenly god martial artist. Longao could clearly sense that the divine Dao aura emitted from Yi Wushuang's body was almost exactly the same as the ancestor's aura. Was this true? However, the next scene made Yi Wushuang's eyes widen like a bull's. His face was filled with disbelief because the aura he released earlier could not suppress Longao. He originally thought that the divine Dao aura he released would be enough to directly kill Longao just by relying on the divine Dao aura. But in the end, Longao still acted as if nothing had happened. It was as if the divine Dao aura he released was trash. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Tonglinga, what's wrong? Looking at Tonglinga's pale face and body that was on the verge of collapse, Longao was shocked. As if he had guessed something, he immediately turned around and stared at Yi Wushuang in front of him. He asked coldly, "What did you do?" "Ha ha ha, Longao, I have to admit that you really surprised me. No wonder you dared to create the dragon sect. However, I can tell you clearly that I just planted a formation on this little girl's body. In this world, other than me, no one can save her." A formation had invaded the body? Of course, Longao knew what it meant to have a formation invade the body. Ever since he received his master's inheritance, Longao had been constantly studying the so-called Tao of formations. In the Tao of formations, as long as one could break through to the divine Tao formation master, one could do one thing, and that was to invade the enemy's body. At that time, unless it was the person himself, it would be very difficult to save him. This was also the peak power of a formation. Longao finally found out that not only had Yi Tian broken through to the heavenly god stage, but he had also reached the divine Dao formation stage. A divine Dao formation master. Longao's heart completely turned cold. Of course, he knew what a divine Dao formation master meant. Among the formation masters, a divine Dao formation master stood at the true peak. Array masters were divided into level 1 array masters, level 2 array masters, level 3 array masters, level 4 array masters, level 5 array masters, level 6 array masters, level 8 array masters, and level 9 array masters. Above level 9 formation masters were king level formation masters, emperor level formation masters, supreme level formation masters, and finally peak divine level formation masters. Longao had never thought that Yi Wushuang could not only become a heavenly god martial artist, but also a divine level formation master. How could he help his master clean up the sect? Of course, Longao knew what such a powerhouse meant. Yi Wushuang could fight 10 or even 100 divine Dao martial artists of the same level. This was the power of a divine level formation master. Longao knew even more clearly that Yi Wushuang was only a divine level formation master and not a heavenly god martial artist. Then, he could still stop Yi Wushuang. However, now, everything was beyond his understanding. What should he do? Just as Longao did not know what to do and Yi Wushuang was about to make a move, a figure suddenly appeared. The figure was none other than the number 1 powerhouse of the dragon sect, Longao's ancestor, a heavenly god martial artist who had entered 6 reincarnations, Long Batian. Chapter 692. Who are you? Yi Wushuang, who was about to kill Longao, suddenly saw the heavenly god before him. His heart skipped a beat. Although he was not afraid of a heavenly god, it was not a good thing for a heavenly god to interfere at this time. Long Batian. Long Batian. Yi Wushuang's expression changed when he heard Long Batian's name. He was in disbelief. As the saying went, a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Long Batian was too famous. Long family had shocked the world back then. However, Long Batian was too reckless and was killed by Long family in the end. Everyone in the world knew about that. But now, Long Batian, who had already fallen, was standing right in front of him. What had happened? Could it be a rebirth stage martial artist? Other than that, there was no other explanation. Why would Long Batian appear before him out of nowhere? Yi Wushuang's expression became more serious as he thought about this. The rebirth stage martial artist's reputation was enough to intimidate Yi Wushuang. Are you scared? The more Long Batian acted like this, the more uncertain Yi Wushuang was. Was he going to leave just like that? Yi Wushuang was almost certain that the 100 drops of dragon blood were in Longao's hands. Although he did not know how Longao did it, the truth was right before his eyes. Longao, hand over the 100 drops of dragon blood and we'll forget about the grudge between us. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. I'll keep you company anytime. Yi Wushuang sneered when he heard that. In the end, Yi Wushuang left because he was not confident that he could kill Long Batian. If he failed, his life would be in danger. Longao was finally relieved when he saw Yi Wushuang's disappearing figure. Although Longao was very confident in the ancestor's strength, no matter what, Yi Wushuang was not only a heavenly god martial artist, but also a god-rank formation master. Once the battle started, it was still unknown who would win. What happened to the girl? Longao did not hide anything in the slightest and recounted everything that happened just now in full detail. Long Batian began to examine Tonglinger's body, but in the end, he shook his head helplessly. Such a powerful formation. Unless a god-level formation master personally comes, this girl will definitely die. Longao already knew this would happen. Without saying anything, Longao brought Tonglinger to a secret room and gently placed the little girl's body on a soft bed. Looking at the young girl on the soft couch, Longao clenched his fists tightly. He kept warning himself in his heart that no matter what happened, he could not let anything happen to Tonglinger. Otherwise, how would he explain it to Yu Yin in the future? The Tao of Formations. Longao was very clear about one thing. If he wanted to save Tonglinger, he had to use the array formation to undo the array formation in his body. There weren't many god-level array masters in this world. At this time, where would he find a god-level array master? It seemed that everything depended on himself. However, he didn't have much time left, and Tonglinger could die at any time. With no other choice, Longao could only find Long Fu and ask directly, Long Fu, do you have a way to temporarily suppress the array formation in the little girl's body? That shouldn't be a problem, but I can only help Master suppress it for 10 days. After 10 days, even I can't do anything. 10 days. With a heavy heart, Longao left the dragon seal space and sat quietly in the hall alone. He thought of various ways to save Tonglinger, but no matter how he thought about it, he still came up with nothing. Looking at his grandfather who suddenly came in, Longao smiled bitterly. In the entire dragon sect, only a few people dared to come in at this time, and Long Haosha was one of them. Looking at his grandson before him, Long Haosha sighed deeply in his heart. Because of Yi Wushuang, he already knew that a god-level formation master was the most powerful existence in the world. Now that his grandson had offended such an existence, trouble would probably come endlessly in the future. You still haven't thought of a way? Nodding, Longao did not hide anything from his grandfather. He told him the truth, Grandfather, I didn't expect Yi Wushuang to be a divine Tao martial artist and a god-level formation master. This time, Tonglinger was attacked by Yi Wushuang in order to save me. I don't know if she's dead or alive. I feel guilty. Longao knew that Tongling was almost killed by Yi Wushuang in order to save him. Not to mention Tongling identity, even if it was an ordinary person, Longao would feel guilty. Longao did not blame anyone, nor was he angry at Yi Wushuang. This was because he knew deeply that in this world, everything depended on strength. With strength, one would have status. Without strength, one was trash. In this dog-eat-dog world, there was only one way to better survive and protect his family and brothers. That was the only way, and that was to have strength. Longao knew that his current strength was still far from enough. The Heavenly Saint stage was a long way from the Great Emperor stage and even the Divine Tao martial artist stage. Now that he had completely fallen out with Yi Wushuang, if it was an ordinary person, of course, Longao could ignore it. However, even if the Patriarch was overseeing Yi Wushuang, it would probably be very difficult to block Yi Wushuang's attack. If Yi Wushuang was only a Divine Tao martial artist, he believed that with the Patriarch overseeing him, Yi Wushuang would not dare to act rashly. However, the problem now was that Yi Wushuang was not only a heavenly god martial artist, but also a god-level formation master. Once he used the formation to deal with him, how could he resist? Thinking of this, Longao's expression became more and more solemn. This matter is very troublesome. Why don't we leave this place and hide temporarily? We can come out when we have enough strength to fight Yi Wushuang. Regarding his grandfather's meaning, Longao naturally knew it clearly. However, Longao was very unwilling because hiding this time was to tell Yi Wushuang that he was afraid of him. However, if he did not hide, not only him, but even his family would be in trouble. If he was alone, he could leave at any time. However, the problem now was that there were countless people behind him. With the Dragon Sect, he definitely could not leave. Since that was the case, this seemed to be the only way. Grandfather, let's put this matter aside for now. With the Patriarch overseeing the sect, I believe that Yi Wushuang would not dare to come rashly without full confidence. I have to save Tongling in 10 days. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. What should we do? Longao also knew the seriousness of the matter. A heavenly god martial artist with the help of a formation. If his grandson could save her, he believed that he would not be so upset here. Chapter 693. Shaking his head, Longao felt helpless. He was also a formation master, but what was the use? Longao knew that he could not remove the attack of a god-level formation master. What should he do? No matter what, nothing could happen to Tongling. Otherwise, he would have to explain it to Yu Yin, and he would not be able to get over it. Grandfather, we'll do as you say. Everyone will be transferred. Through this incident, I'm going to conduct a strict selection. Longao was very clear about his grandfather's intentions. However, at this moment, Longao did not have the slightest bit of information to care about these things. He left everything to his grandfather while he focused on saving Tongling. Next, Longao and Longao could be said to have split into 2 groups. Longao began to transfer all the disciples of the sect. This time, Longao was prepared to do a thorough cleaning. In other words, he did not want any disciples who were not good, especially those who did not seem loyal. As for Longao, he went into closed-door cultivation and focused on saving Tongling. In the secret chamber, Longao carefully checked Tongling's body. If it were any other god-level formation master, Tongling would definitely die. However, Yi Wushuang's situation was different. After all, Yi Wushuang and Longao had the same master. Regardless of whether Yi Wushuang was a god-level formation master or not, the formation that he cultivated was almost the same as Longao's. Unless Yi Wushuang took a different path and created his own formation path. However, was that possible? Taking a different path and creating one's own formation path sounded extremely easy, but it was extremely difficult to actually do it. After a careful inspection, Longao frowned because he had already found out how many formations had eroded Tongling's body. There were a total of 12 formations. The 12 formations were the primary formation, dual chi formation, tripartite formation, for extremes formation, 5 elements formation, 6 lights formation, 7 stars formation, 8 trigrams formation, 9 palaces formation, 10 extremes formation, 36 dipper formation, and 72 earth fiend formation. If the 12 array formations were taken out individually, each array formation would not be strong. However, the 12 formations that Yi Wushuang had set up were interconnected. The problem now was that Longao had no idea how Yi Wushuang had set up the 12 formations. That was rather troublesome. At this moment, Longao didn't dare to act rashly. If you were awake, I could ask for your opinion. But now, what should I do? At this moment, Long Fu's silhouette suddenly appeared. Master, I've just checked. There are 12 formations in the little girl's body, and there are a total of 1,000 variations. Although Long Fu did not finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. He sighed deeply. Just as Long Fu had said, if he made a single mistake, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was precisely because of this that Longao did not dare to casually make a move. Long Fu, what should I do now? Asking was also pointless because Long Fu could be said to know nothing about the Tao of array formations. Shrugging helplessly, Long Fu said, Master, you know my situation best, so I can't help you with this. However, Master, it's not impossible to save the little girl. What is it? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Ever since he started dating Long Fu, Longao had a rough understanding of Long Fu's character. Since Long Fu had said those words, there was no doubt that Long Fu definitely had a way to save Tonglinga. Again, no matter what, Tonglinga had ended up in such a state in order to save him. Master, although there are thousands of formations in the little girl's body, and she'll definitely die if she makes a single mistake, I believe that you can check them one by one as long as you have a powerful foundation. If you're lucky, you can save the little girl. So that's how it is. Long Fu's meaning was very simple. This way, the chances were still not high, but Longao knew that having a chance was better than having no chance at all. At the very least, even if there was a 1% chance that he could save Tonglinga, he would not choose to give up. Then what should I do? Very simple, borrow the power of the spirit. Spirit. Longao let out a long sigh of relief. Ever since he had obtained thousands of divine Tao inheritances, he had given them all away. He was only left with 2 spirits. One was for Yu Yin, and the other was for Aoshue. Previously, due to some reason, he had already lost one of the 2 souls. If he were to lose another one in order to save Tongling, then there would not be much of the 2 souls left. At that time, what would Aoshue and Yu Yin do? Should he not save Tonglinga? On one side was the spirit, and on the other was Tonglinga. How should he choose? If it was an ordinary person, he would definitely choose the spirit and not Tonglinga. The reason was simple. In the eyes of others, divine Tao inheritances were not something that could be compared to anything else. Everyone knew that once one obtained a divine Tao inheritance, even if he could not become a divine Tao warrior, he could at least become a great emperor warrior. What kind of concept was that? If that was the case, who would be so foolish to give up the opportunity to become a martial Tao warrior for a woman? Humans were all selfish. Even if the person had saved you before, there would be 85% of people who would choose to give up and leave behind the divine Tao inheritance. However, Longao was different. There were 2 reasons. First, Tonglinga was Yu Yin's junior sister. Their relationship was there. Second, although Tonglinga was a little wild and willful, Longao still had a good impression of her. Third, Tonglinga was trying to save him. Otherwise, Tonglinga would not be like this. Because of this, Longao did not even think about it. He nodded and took out the remaining spirit inheritance. Master, I will now put the spirit into the little girl's body. I will protect her body. Remember, you only have 3 days. Nodding, Longao was also extremely dignified. 3 days would pass in the blink of an eye under normal circumstances. However, as time passed, Tonglinga would be in more danger. Therefore, no matter what happened, he had to find the changes in the 12 arrays within 3 days. Taking a deep breath, Longao said seriously, let's begin. Then, Long Fu forced his spirit into Tong Linga's body and his own power followed. This was Long Fu. If it was an ordinary person, would they be able to do this? It was also because of Long Fu that Longao was very assured. Master, you can begin. Nodding, Longao first adjusted his breathing so that he would not make any mistakes. At this time, Longao forcibly separated his spirit and began to slowly enter Tong Linga's body. The entire secret room was filled with an extremely tense atmosphere. Chapter 694. Dragon Sect. In just 3 days, there was no one left in the Dragon Sect. Ever since the incident with Yi Wushuang, Long Haoshe was very afraid of Yi Wushuang. He could only choose to avoid him instead of fighting him head-on. It had to be said that the current Dragon Sect was on the right track. In just 3 days, everyone could be transferred. It was precisely because of this that Long Haoshe used this transfer to kick all suspicious people out of the sect. In the secret chamber, Long Ao and Long Fu worked together to find the changes in the formation in Tong Linga's body. However, they still could not find any clues. 2 days had passed. In other words, there was only 1 day left. If they could not find the changes in the formation in Tong Linga's body, there was only one outcome for Tong Linga. She would definitely die. Suppressing the anxiety and frustration in his heart, Long Ao continued to devote himself to finding the changes in the formation. Long Ao, I'm going to tear you into pieces. Looking at the Dragon Sect before him, Yi Wushuang finally made a comeback after 3 days. Yi Wushuang was very afraid of Long Batian. No matter what, Long Batian's strength and reputation were there. However, this time, Yi Wushuang came prepared. As a god-level formation master, Yi Wushuang's strength could double with the help of formations. Just as Long Ao had guessed, with Yi Wushuang's strength and the Tao of formations, not to mention 1 against 10, even 1 against 100 would not be a problem. Yi Wushuang came with great confidence. But in the end, sensing that there was no one in the Dragon Sect, Yi Wushuang's expression was extremely gloomy. It was as ugly as it could be. Yi Wushuang really could not figure out how the Dragon Sect did it. Ever since he left, he had been monitoring the entire Dragon Sect. The slightest movement would definitely not be able to be hidden from him. However, now, the Dragon Sect could be transferred without anyone noticing. It was really difficult for him to accept. Long Ao, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. The anger in his heart erupted like a volcano. Yi Wushuang directly released his divine Tao aura. In just a few minutes, Long Ao Peak turned into ruins. In the end, Yi Wushuang left. Long Ao Peak. Looking at the ruins, Long Haoshe was very unwilling. However, he knew very well that the power of a heavenly god was not an existence that the Dragon Sect could contend against. Not to mention the others, even the Patriarch might not be a match for Yi Wushuang. Father, Yi Wushuang is still a danger. What should we do? How could Long Haoshe not know about Long Yi's worries? Long Haoshe sighed deeply in his heart. He realized that ever since his grandson rose, everything did not seem to be going smoothly. In the beginning, it was the 6 major sects, the 4 major forces, and the current Yi Wushuang. Since when was this the end? Long Haoshe knew very well that the further his grandson went with the sect, the more trouble and danger there would be. But could he stop Ao? Wait and see. As long as we don't show up, Yi Wushuang can't do anything to us. At this moment, Long Haoshe and Long Yi both looked towards a certain direction. Their faces were filled with surprise because they knew what had happened. Both of them disappeared at the same time. In the secret chamber, Long Ao looked at Tong Linga in surprise and heaved a long sigh of relief. After 3 days of investigation, he had finally found the changes in the formation that Yi Wushuang had set up and resolved them for the little girl. Ao, did you succeed? Seeing his grandfather and father appear, Long Ao, who was already very weak, held back his tears and nodded, I was lucky to find it. If Yi Wushuang had upgraded the formation, it wouldn't have been so easy this time. Long Ao was not a fool. Of course, he knew that Yi Wushuang had been careless. If nothing went wrong, Yi Wushuang would not have guessed that he was a formation master. Therefore, when he attacked, it was only 12 small formations that were interlocked. If Yi Wushuang upgraded the 12 formations, it would not be the so-called 1,000 changes. It might even be 10,000 or 10,000 changes. If that was the case, Tong Linga would definitely die, and he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. However, everything was luck. Yi Wushuang's carelessness was his luck. Aoe, you're tired too. You should go rest first. After 3 days of continuous investigation, Longao was indeed tired. He was very relieved to hand Tong Linga over to his grandfather and father. Dusk. Looks like Yi Wushuang won't let this go. Grandfather, from now on, no matter who it is in the sect, don't show your face easily. Longao was not surprised at all when he heard his grandfather say that Yi Wushuang had returned to the dragon sect. This was because he had already guessed that Yi Wushuang would not let this go. Longao admired his grandfather's speed. Yes, I've already given the order. As long as we don't show our faces easily, I believe Yi Wushuang can't do anything to us. Aoe, what do you plan to do next? What should I do? What should I do? After thinking about it, Longao finally decided to comprehend the earth elemental art and the Tao of divination, as well as the so-called Tao of formations. After telling Longao his thoughts, Longao left and prepared to cultivate in seclusion. The matter this time, to Longao, had a great impact. This was because the legendary formation killing people was real. Yi Wushuang relied on the formation to corrode the body of others. As long as it was not a formation master of the same level, the other party would definitely die. The reason why he was able to save Tong Linga this time could be said to be a blessing in disguise. However, based on his understanding of formations, Longao knew that only a god-level formation master could corrode the body of an enemy and kill people invisibly. Formation masters went from level 1 to level 9, then to king level, emperor level, venerable level, and emperor level. It was easier said than done to reach the so-called god level. It was precisely because of this that Longao admired Yi Wushuang very much. This was because his master had said that although Yi Wushuang's talent was very strong, after so many years, he would at most be able to break through to the titled Great Emperor and become a venerable level formation master. But in the end, not only did Yi Wushuang become a heavenly god martial artist, but he had also broken through to become a god-level formation master. To be able to achieve such an achievement with two aspects at the same time, this in itself already showed Yi Wushuang's talent and potential. Longao knew even more clearly that if he wanted to walk the right path, he would have to break through to become a god-level formation master. Only then would he be able to use the formation to corrode the body of others and kill people invisibly. But was that possible? He was very confident in his talent, but Longao also knew his own limits. God knew how long it would take to break through to become a god-level formation master. Therefore, Longao was prepared to take a shortcut. What should he do? At this moment, Tong Linga, who had been unconscious, suddenly woke up. She still seemed very weak, but as a titled Great Emperor, Tong Linga had already adapted in just a few seconds. P.S. Tomorrow's chapter will be updated at 12 o'clock tonight. It will begin on the 15th. Chapter 695. You're awake. Of course, Tong Linga knew what had happened. With a light snort, Tong Linga seemed to be very dissatisfied as she said, I saved you. How are you going to repay me? Hearing these words, Longao could be considered depressed to the extreme. However, that was the case. Regardless of whether he could have blocked it back then, Tong Linga had taken the blow for him without even thinking about it. Just that alone made him feel that he should repay her. How do you want me to repay you? He chuckled. He had to admit that Tong Linga was indeed a great beauty through and through. Even when compared to Yuan, Aoshue, and the others, she was not inferior. If it were an ordinary person, they would not be able to resist such temptation. However, Longao was different. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted. However, there were only two people in Longao's heart. One was Yu Yin, and the other was Aoshue. Longao, I haven't thought about it yet. I'll let you know when I've thought about it. She was troubled. Longao was most afraid of this because he had no idea what Tonglinga would ask him to do. However, since things had already come to this, Longao could not say anything. He nodded and said, "You've just recovered. Rest well. I'm going into closed-door cultivation for this period of time. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Oh right, if you need anything, you can look for my mother. She'll try her best to satisfy you." After thinking about it, Longao could only think of his mother. No matter what, Tonglinga was still a girl. Longao quickly left because he didn't dare to stay any longer. Towards this little girl, he was truly powerless. But, looking at the disappearing figure, Tonglinga suddenly laughed. There was a strange expression on her face. Even Tonglinga did not know about it. After returning to the secret chamber, Longao did not continue to dwell on other problems. Instead, he sat down quietly and comprehended the various formation Dao. Longao was very touched when he saw Yi Wushuang's formation attack this time. Therefore, he was prepared to think of all sorts of ways to see if he could do that. Burning Heavens Array. In Longao's mind, he was constantly digesting the Burning Heavens Array. According to his master, Yi Wushuang had only cultivated 90% of the Burning Sky formation. He did not know the last 10% at all. If he could cultivate the so-called Burning Sky formation, would it not mean that even Yi Wushuang might not be his match? Burning Heavens Array art. Longao devoted himself to the cultivation of the Burning Heavens Array art. The Dragon sect's sudden low profile caused the people of the 9 states to be completely depressed. They did not know what the Dragon sect was trying to do. Could it be that they were trying to trick the 4 major forces again? Previously, the matter of Longao tricking the 4 great influences had almost become a topic that everyone in the 9 continents gossiped about after tea. It was precisely because of this that the Dragon sect suddenly kept a low profile this time. Everyone thought that the Dragon sect was trying to play tricks again. Their goal was very simple, and that was to deal with the 4 great influences. As everyone knew, although the 4 major forces had already withdrawn from the 9 regions and hid in the spirit domain of the 9 regions, and during this period of time, both sides had been living in peace. But everyone knew that the grievances between the 4 major forces and Longao had already reached the point where they were like fire and water. If you don't die, I die. If both sides could continue to live in peace like this, even ghosts wouldn't believe it. Not only the others, but even the 4 great influences themselves were in an absolute state of nervousness. Just like that, half a month quietly passed in the blink of an eye. Originally, they thought that the Dragon sect would make a big move, but what made everyone depressed was that the Dragon sect did not make the slightest move for half a month. If that was the case, what exactly did the Dragon sect mean? Others might not know, but after a long period of questioning, the 4 great influences finally knew why the Dragon sect had suddenly disappeared. A supreme Dao martial artist. The 4 great influences had never thought that the Dragon sect would actually offend a supreme Dao martial artist. They really did not know what was good for them. Although they were pleasantly surprised, the 4 great influences did not act rashly. If it were the 4 great influences in the past, they would definitely take advantage of the Dragon sect's disappearance to pursue and occupy the 9 continents. But now, ever since the 4 great influences were severely injured by Longao, the 4 great influences had become exceptionally careful. Unless they were completely confident, the 4 great influences would definitely not act rashly. The most important reason why the 4 great influences did not act was because Longao had offended a supreme Dao martial artist. As the most powerful existence in the world, the 4 great influences knew very well what a supreme Dao martial artist represented. Longao offending a supreme Dao martial artist was simply courting death. As long as they watched the fire from the other side, they could just reap the benefits when the time came. There was no need to waste time. Just like that, the 9 continents remained as calm as before. It did not seem like a storm was brewing because of the Dragon sect's sudden low profile. Yi Wushuang. Of course, he would not let the matter rest. For the sake of the 100 drops of dragon blood, Yi Wushuang would appear at the Dragon sect every 3 days. However, the longest time would not exceed an hour. In fact, Yi Wushuang knew very well that since Longao had chosen to leave, it would be very difficult for him to appear at Longao Peak. However, he clearly knew that Yi Wushuang was unwilling to give up. He had painstakingly collected it for so many years, but it just so happened that it had benefited Longao. 100 drops of dragon blood were clearly about to be refined into a divine dragon pill, but in the end, he was tricked. It would be fine if the person who tricked him was a heavenly god martial artist, but the other party was only a mere heavenly saint. How could he be willing to accept this? Standing at the peak of Longao Peak, Yi Wushuang's eyes stared fixedly at the endless void in the distance. After standing there for an unknown period of time, Yi Wushuang suddenly muttered to himself, "Longao, no matter where you are, I will find you." After this time, Yi Wushuang immediately left Qianju and did not return to Longao Peak. Even so, Longao still did not lead the dragon sect to appear. In fact, everyone from the dragon sect was at Longao Peak. They were just hiding under Longao Peak. With Long Baishan's aura concealing them, even Yi Wushuang would find it difficult to discover the existence of the dragon sect. Longao Peak, underground. In a secret chamber, Longao sat cross-legged and quietly comprehended the burning sky formation. However, in the end, no matter how hard he tried, he could not reach Yi Wushuang's level. It seemed that he would have to wait until he broke through to become a god-level formation master before he could invade the enemy's body and kill them invisibly. Was he going to give up just like that? Longao knew very well that if he could cultivate such a formation, killing enemies above his level would be a piece of cake. He was unwilling, very unwilling. He knew that it was very difficult, but Longao was still unwilling to give up. In the end, he had no choice but to try the so-called 5-element heaven-devouring technique again. Since the 5-element heaven-devouring technique could be fused with spatial teleportation, doubling the power of spatial teleportation. If the 5-element heaven-devouring technique could be fused with a formation, who knew what the outcome would be? Chapter 696. The 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique. As expected of a supreme cultivation technique from the Chaos Stone Tablet, Longao had a feeling that the power of the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique was not inferior to the 9 Revolutions Rebirth Technique. That was why Longao devoted himself to fusing the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique and the formation. One had to admit that Longao's talent and courage were not something that ordinary people could compare to. If it were anyone else, would they dare to do this? They would not dare to do it 100%. In the world, only Longao dared to fuse spatial teleportation with the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique and formation with the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique. Sitting quietly on the ground, Longao continued to fuse the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique and the formation. Immediately after, Longao's face revealed a trace of surprise. Although he was still unable to truly comprehend the 5 Elements Heaven-Swallowing Art and the formation, he was still able to double the might of the formation with the help of the 5 Elements Heaven-Swallowing Art, just like teleportation. However, that was not Longao's request. Longao's meaning was actually very simple. He just wanted to do one thing, and that was, with his current level of array formation, it was simply impossible to do one thing. Only a god-rank formation master could corrode the enemy's body and kill them without leaving a trace. However, Longao wanted to use the 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique to forcefully do it. Appear. The 5 Elements Heaven-Devouring Technique combined metal, wood, water, fire, and earth into a formation. It could use the power of the 5 elements to kill the enemy. In other words, the formation could corrode the enemy's body and kill them without leaving a trace. Longao was overjoyed when he saw the formation appear on the stone wall in front of him. He had done it. He had really done it. If Yi Wushuang and his master found out about this, Longao could not imagine what their expressions would be like. Because under normal circumstances, to be able to do this, unless one was a divine-level array master, but Longao was not. Longao discovered one thing. No matter how hard he tried to practice the 5 Elements Heaven-Swallowing Technique, he couldn't reach the entry level. However, no matter what kind of martial skill it was, it would become exceptionally easy once it was fused with the 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique. Moreover, its might would double. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he were beaten to death. After half a month of seclusion, Longao finally left the secret room. After some simple sorting, Longao met his parents first. He then looked for his grandfather and asked about the recent happenings in the sect. He was relieved to know that Yi Wushuang had left completely. Although Yi Wushuang has left, no one knows when he'll appear. Therefore, I'm prepared to let the sect hide here. This way, we can accept the inheritance wholeheartedly. What do you think? Longao nodded. He had no objections to his grandfather's arrangement. I'll follow Grandpa's arrangements. By the way, Tonglinger has been looking for you for the past 10 days. It seems like she has something important to tell you. Got it, Grandpa. Longao was really afraid of meeting Tonglinger because this mischievous little girl was too difficult to deal with. Especially now, Tonglinger had saved him once. Who knew what conditions she would propose when the time came? However, he had to face what he had to face. Longao had no choice but to look for Tonglinger. Extremely unwilling, Longao went to the back mountain of the dragon sect. Others might be afraid of Yi Wushuang, but Tonglinger was not. As long as Tonglinger was not out of her mind and took the initiative to attack Yi Wushuang, he believed that nothing would happen to her. You're finally willing to come out. Seeing Longao suddenly appear, Tonglinger snorted coldly. Her face was filled with displeasure because she only knew Longao in the entire dragon sect. As for Longao's mother, Mu Lin, Tonglinger had never looked for her. Shrugging helplessly, Longao asked, I heard from Grandpa that you're looking for me for something. May I know what it is? Longao, my request is very simple. I only need you to do one thing for me. What is it? Longao was already prepared. Tonglinger thought about it and said, come with me to a place and help me look for something. Where? Seeing Tonglinger's serious expression, Longao's heart skipped a beat. The Nether Mansion. There were a total of 4 major forces in the spirit territory of the 9 states. They were the East Royal City, the Long family in the West Rank 3, the Nether Mansion in the south, and the Ethereal Palace in the north. Among the 4 major forces, the most mysterious one was the Nether Mansion. Longao knew very little about the Nether Mansion. If it were not for the Nether Mansion causing trouble for him from time to time, he believed that he would not have noticed the Nether Mansion at all. Among the 4 major forces, the Nether Mansion was too low-key. This time, Tonglinger's request for Longao was very simple. She wanted him to enter the Nether Mansion and look for something. Because of this, Longao was very curious. With Tonglinger's strength, it did not seem difficult for her to enter the Nether Mansion. Even if she encountered a titled Great Emperor of the same level, she could easily take out what she wanted. If that was the case, why did Tonglinger come to him? In the Nether Mansion. Tonglinger, why did you come to me? With your strength, you alone are more than enough. Longao, are you really stupid or are you pretending to be stupid? Longao was confused by Tonglinger's words. However, he was not stupid. Tonglinger's words had a hidden meaning. Was there something strange about the Nether Mansion? Alright, I think you don't know either. Longao, I can tell you now. In the 9 states, among the Nether Mansion, the Imperial City, the Long family, and the Ethereal Palace, the Nether Mansion is the true overlord. It is because there are divine realm martial artists in the Nether Mansion. Divine realm martial artists? Longao, of course, knew what Tonglinger meant. He had never thought that there would be a divine realm martial artist in the Nether Mansion. Longao, of course, knew what a divine realm martial artist meant. If it was as Tonglinger said, and there were divine realm martial artists in the Nether Mansion, then there was no doubt that the Nether Mansion was the strongest among the 4 forces. Is there really a divine realm martial artist in the Nether Mansion? Seeing Tonglinger nod her head, Longao was even more speechless because he really couldn't figure out why she still wanted to enter the serene Nether Mansion since she clearly knew that there was a supreme Dao martial artist holding down the fort. Was she tired of living? What's more, Longao could almost affirm that the force behind Tonglinga was very powerful. If she relied on the strength of her backer, he believed that Tonglinga could easily enter the Nether Mansion without any effort. No matter how he thought about it, Longao still could not figure it out. Therefore, he asked, Tongling, why do you want to enter the Nether Mansion? You should know that with our strength, once we are discovered by the Nether Mansion, only death awaits us. Why don't you go and get reinforcements? When the time comes, it will be easy, and we will not have to take the risk. What do you think? Longao absolutely did not want to enter the Nether Mansion, especially when he knew that there was a divine realm martial artist in the Nether Mansion. Chapter 697. She glared at him fiercely. Longao, can you not make me look down on you? I'm just telling the truth. Tonglinga suddenly said helplessly, if I could borrow the power of the sect, I wouldn't have asked for your help this time. Hearing Tonglinga's words, Longao was completely depressed. Longao was very curious. He didn't know what kind of treasure was in the Serene Darkness Mansion that could make Tonglinga ignore the danger and risk her life to enter the Serene Darkness Mansion. Longao, don't worry. As long as we are careful, we will definitely succeed. At this point, Longao knew very well that there was no way out for him. The two didn't enter the Serene Darkness Mansion immediately. Instead, they found a restaurant and ordered a table of dishes. They went straight to the point. Longao asked directly, Tonglinga, I want to know about the Serene Darkness Mansion. Nodding, Tonglinga didn't seem to want to hide anything. She said, Longao, among the four major forces, you can actually ignore the Long family, the Imperial City, and the Ethereal Palace. Although the Long family is a Long family, I believe that you know more about the Long family than I do. Longao was very clear about this point. Long family was divided into 9 levels. From lowest to highest, they were level 9, level 8, level 7, level 6, level 5, level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1 Long family. Of the 9 levels, only the level 1 Long family could be considered a true Long family. The rest were just subsidiary families of the Long family. Long family had a rule that only level 3 Long family and above could enter the Dragon Valley and become a dragon warrior. However, everyone knew that the Long clan had strict control over the Dragon Valley. Even if it was a rank 3 or rank 2 Long clan, it was extremely difficult for them to casually enter the Dragon Valley. Long family, Longao was very dissatisfied from beginning to end. Tonglinga's meaning was very simple. That was, the rank 3 Long family of the 9-state spirit realm might not be in the eyes of the Long family. Even if he destroyed the rank 3 Long family, it was unknown whether the Long family would act. Longao didn't say anything. He just sat there and listened quietly. Among the 4 major forces, you only need to pay attention to the Nether Mansion. If there are no accidents, only the Nether Mansion will compete with you in the future battle of the 9 provinces. Tell me about the Nether Mansion. I don't know much either. Shrugging helplessly, Tonglinga chuckled and said, the Nether Mansion is very mysterious. Master once told me not to touch the Nether Mansion. Therefore, I only know that there are divine realm martial artists in the Nether Mansion. If the Nether Mansion wants to destroy the other 3 forces, it will be a simple matter. He hardly knew. After hearing Tonglinga's words, Longao's heart moved. Tonglinga's master was Yu Yin's master. If even Hades was so wary of the Nether Mansion, Longao found it hard to imagine just how powerful the Nether Mansion was. Taking a deep breath, Longao said helplessly, the serene Nether Mansion is so mysterious, and there is a supreme Dao warrior guarding it. Even if you and I are careful, I am afraid it is not possible to find what you want in the serene Nether Mansion. After thinking about it, Longao still felt that something was wrong. Although Longao was confident in his strength and spatial teleportation, he knew his limits. Tonglinga just said that there were divine realm martial artists in the Nether Mansion. If they were unlucky and were discovered, forget about finding what they wanted, it would be a big problem if they could leave the Nether Mansion alive. Tonglinga glared again and said with dissatisfaction, Longao, don't make me look down on you. The man my senior sister likes can't be so cowardly, right? She used Yu Yin as an excuse. Longao didn't waste any more words. Since Tongling'er had already said so, he had to go. Since that was the case, there was no point in wasting words. Just like that, the two of them didn't say anything else. They just drank and ate quietly. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. Nether Mansion, one of the 4 great forces, ruled the 9-state spirit domain's southern region. The Nether Mansion sat in Nether Valley, surrounded by black fog. From afar, it looked as if the valley was swallowed by the black fog. It was a terrifying sight. Longao and Tongling'er stood far away from Nether Valley, not daring to enter. No matter what, the Nether Mansion was the most mysterious existence among the 4 major powers. Who knew how many hidden traps there were? It would be a disaster if they were discovered before the two of them entered the Nether Mansion. Longao, what should we do? You're the one who came looking for me. Don't you have a way to enter the Nether Mansion? I don't. I came looking for you to give it a try. If I could, I would have gone in long ago. Why would I come looking for you? Hearing Tongling'er's words, Longao was very helpless. She was really a little girl that made people helpless. Things had already reached this point. Longao clearly knew that regardless of whether he was willing or not, he had to help Tongling'er enter. Furthermore, Longao also wanted to know what Tongling'er wanted to obtain from the serene underworld mansion. As a titled Great Emperor, Tongling'er did not seem to care about ordinary things. But Longao knew it wasn't easy to sneak into Nether Valley. Nether Valley was heavily guarded. How am I supposed to sneak into Hell Valley? Longao, have you figured it out yet? There is a way to sneak in, but it requires you to sacrifice something. I'm afraid you won't be willing. What way? Tongling'er was very curious. She didn't know what method Longao was talking about. This time, she had to succeed in coming to the serene Hell Mansion. Therefore, Tongling'er had already decided that no matter what method it was, she would agree to it. Try it and you'll know. Before Tongling'er could react, Longao hugged her, giving her a fright. Then, the two vanished from sight, teleporting 3 times in a row. In a few seconds, they were inside Hell Valley without making a sound. Teleportation. In this world, only Longao could do this. As for the others, they were afraid that no one could do this. Inside Nether Valley, looking at the black fog around her, Tongling'er, who was about to open fire, was shocked. She seemed to be in disbelief because she never thought that Longao would really do it. How did Longao do it? From beginning to end, Tongling'er didn't know what happened. She asked curiously, Longao, quickly tell me. How did you do it? Chapter 698. Of course, Longao wouldn't tell Tongling'er about his teleportation ability. Again, teleportation was his biggest secret. Chuckling, Longao looked around. We may be in Hell Valley, but we still need to be careful. Longao doesn't want to talk. If they were outside, Tongling'er wouldn't let it go and would get to the bottom of it. But this was different. No one knew what would happen in the next second in Hell Valley, so Tongling'er nodded. I know. Where is it? I heard that it was placed in Soul-Severing Tower by Nether Manor. Soul-Severing Tower? Where the hell is that? Looking at the young lady beside him, Longao was completely depressed. This time, he had been tricked by Tongling'er. He originally thought that since Tongling'er was so confident, she would definitely know where this item was. But the result? Tongling'er didn't know, only hearsay. If that was the case, where was he supposed to find Soul-Severing Tower? Tongling'er didn't take this matter to heart. She smiled and said, Don't worry, there are countless disciples in the Nether Mansion. As long as we ask any one of them, we'll soon know where the Soul-Severing Pavilion is. He didn't say anything. Things had already reached this point. Longao knew that he could only continue. Longao had no choice but to follow Tongling'er as they made their way to Hell Valley. The black fog made it impossible to see one's fingers. The more bizarre the serene Nether Mansion was, the more fearful Longao was. This was because Tongling'er had just said that among the 4 major forces of the 9-state spirit domain, the serene nether mansion was the most mysterious and powerful existence. They were only in Hell Valley, not Nether Manor. To put it bluntly, they didn't even know where they were, so how were they supposed to find Soul-Severing Tower? The valley was shrouded in black fog and only a few things could be seen. Just like that, the two were on high alert. Soon, the two of them found the disciples of Nether Mansion. They were Xiantian warriors. For the current Longao, killing two Xiantian warriors was a piece of cake. Longao, what are you doing? Give me some time. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. Longao discovered a problem. This Tonglinga in front of him was extremely unreliable. If this continued, his life would be in her hands sooner or later. Because of this, Longao was prepared to do as he wished. Longao's method was simple. It was to refine the souls of two Xiantian realm martial artists into soul slaves. Not only would they know about the Nether Mansion, but they would also be able to conceal their auras. This way, it would be difficult for them to be discovered. It was killing two birds with one stone. Longao naturally wouldn't tell Tong Linji anything about the dragon seal. Not only that, but Longao also wouldn't tell Tonglinga anything about soul servants. No matter how anxious Tonglinga was, Longao always evaded her questions. Moreover, he brought her to an extremely secluded place. The surroundings were still shrouded in black mist, making it impossible to see the surroundings clearly. Who knew what was going on in the surrounding valleys? According to Long Fu's current power, refining two Xiantian martial artists would only take a few minutes. From start to finish, it would only take a few minutes for the refinement to succeed. Longao was pleasantly surprised because the two Xiantian realm martial artists didn't disappoint him. In other words, through the Soul Slave soul search, he quickly found out where Breaking Soul Pavilion was. I already know where Breaking Soul Pavilion is. You have to follow me closely and don't act rashly. He knew. Tonglinga was very curious after hearing Longao's words, but she chose to believe him. She just didn't know how Longao did it. Tonglinga, who was about to ask, suddenly saw a shadow floating towards her. With his strength, as long as he released a little bit of his aura, he would be able to kill a Xiantian realm soul slave. Longao was startled. Seeing this situation, he hurriedly stopped her, saying, "This is a soul slave. Let him enter your body." At that time, as long as we don't reveal any flaws, I believe the Nether Mansion's people won't be able to discover us. She was skeptical. But still, Tonglinga seemed to trust Longao. Otherwise, a martial artist wouldn't let a soul enter their body so casually. Once the soul entered the body with evil intentions, even a titled Great Emperor would be instantly destroyed. The two soul slaves were merged. Then, the two used some time to merge their thoughts and previous matters, and then merged their auras. In other words, from this moment on, their auras were clearly that of Nether Mansion's disciples, not Longao and Tonglinga. How magical. Longao, how did you do it? Tonglinga was shocked and couldn't help but ask. But would Longao say it? Let's move faster. Although they had successfully refined and merged two Xiantian realm soul slaves, it wasn't a long-term solution. As the saying went, it was better to be safe than sorry. If the two of them were discovered, the consequences would be unimaginable. Tonglinga also knew this, so she didn't continue asking. Just like this, the two of them slowly entered the real Nether Mansion according to the information they received. Through the merging of the soul slaves, the two learned of Nether Mansion's secret. The Hell Valley they were in wasn't the real Nether Mansion, but just a front station. If one didn't know and rashly entered Hell Valley, there wouldn't be any problems in the short run. But in the long run, the black mist would control them and turn them into mindless puppets. Even now, the two were still scared. This was especially true for Tonglinga. She knew very well that if it weren't for Longao's help, she wouldn't have been able to enter the serene underworld mansion smoothly, let alone obtain what she wanted. The two slowly reached the deepest part of Hell Valley. Looking at the waterfall in front of them, they knew that the real Nether Mansion was behind the waterfall. Since things had gotten to this point, the two didn't waste any more words and stepped in. Miraculously, they didn't feel the slightest bit of water when they stepped in. In other words, it looked like a waterfall, but it wasn't. The two were dumbstruck. A valley within a valley. The two never imagined there would be such a natural valley behind Hell Valley. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. Nether Mansion was indeed one of the 4 great powers of the 9 states. It was also the most mysterious and the most powerful existence. Just this point alone made it an existence the other 3 great powers couldn't compare to. P.S. I recommend Yarrow Yee's masterpiece, Burning Wrath of the Heavens. The other 8 books are Super Ability Student, Dragon Blood Holy Emperor, Beautiful CEO's Super Secretary, Only Among the 3 Realms, Primal Chaos Heavenly Emperor, Unparalleled Heavenly Sovereign, Boiling Dragon Blood, Heavenly Sovereign of Martial Dao, and Supreme God of War. Chapter 699. Valley Central Valley. In front of them was a huge valley that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was still shrouded in black mist, but it was much dimmer than the valley outside. Longao, should we head to Breaking Soul Tower now? The entire valley was like a city. Both of them knew very well that this was not the headquarters of the Nether Mansion, but the largest city of the Nether Mansion. Valley Central City. Shaking his head, Longao said, "It's not time yet. Let's enter the city first." "It's not time yet." Hearing those words, Tonglinga was depressed to the extreme, but she didn't know why. She always wanted to listen to Longao, even if it was wrong. Not only that, following Longao, Tonglinga always had a sense of security. It was an indescribable feeling. The two of them did not head to Breaking Soul Tower immediately. Instead, they entered Valley Central City. It was very prosperous, but there weren't many people. Regarding this, the two of them knew very well. In other words, everyone in the city was a disciple of the Nether Mansion, or the most loyal people of the Nether Mansion. Otherwise, ordinary people would not be able to enter Valley Central City. Although the two of them had fused with the aura of soul slaves, they were still careful. Through the fusion, the two of them knew that the so-called Breaking Soul Tower was a forbidden area of the Nether Mansion. Ordinary people could not even get close to it, let alone enter it. In other words, the two of them who had just fused with the identity of 2 soul slaves were not qualified to enter Breaking Soul Tower at all. This was also the most troublesome thing for the two of them. "Longao, what should we do now?" "Wait and see." Longao only said 4 simple words. Then, no matter how Tonglinga asked, Longao did not say a word, causing Tonglinga to almost go berserk. Valley Central City. "Young master, let's go back." "Shut up, you useless thing." "Pa," a slap to the face rang out. An extremely impatient young man directly walked towards the restaurant. Everyone who was a simple young man all avoided him. Longao, who was eating, was delighted when he saw this. Intuition told him that the young man walking toward him was definitely not an ordinary person. Longao was waiting for an opportunity. The 2 soul slaves he had just fused with were useless. They could not get close to Breaking Soul Tower, so how could they enter it? Because of this, Longao had unknowingly waited for 6 hours. If they were not in the Nether Mansion, Tonglinga would have exploded at this moment. "What's wrong?" "Wait for me." Longao. The Happy Red Brothel was the only brothel in Valley Central City. The Happy Red Brothel was only able to operate so smoothly because of the support of the son of the Mansion Master of Nether Mansion, the young Master of Nether Mansion. If it was any other time, Longao might have waited. But now, the situation was completely different. They had to end the battle quickly and not waste a single minute. After all, the longer they stayed in the serene underworld mansion, the more danger they would be in. Longao did not give Wei Botian the slightest chance. He directly killed him and had Long Fu refine him into a soul slave. Only now did Longao know this person's identity. He was unlucky. Longao did not hide anything from Tonglinga and told her what he had done. Tonglinga naturally knew what Longao meant, but she was curious. Because Longao had only killed Wei Botian, how was she going to enter Breaking Soul Tower? Longao could guess what Tonglinga was thinking. He helplessly shook his head and said, I already know this person's identity. He is the Nether Mansion's Mansion Lord's son, Wei Botian. You just need to follow me. Tong Linga angrily glared at him and said, "Why didn't you come earlier? You're so boring." Longao was afraid. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. No one knew what a woman was thinking. Not saying any more nonsense, Longao brought Tong Linga and headed towards the Breaking Soul Tower. Nether Mansion. Breaking Soul Tower was listed as a forbidden area by the Nether Mansion. No one was allowed to take a single step into Breaking Soul Tower. Breaking Soul Tower was a huge tower surrounded by black mist. It was very eerie. Even without entering Breaking Soul Tower, one could feel the terrifying aura of Breaking Soul Tower just by looking at it from afar. Longao and Tong Linga followed behind corpse slave Wei Botian and walked step by step towards Breaking Soul Tower. As soon as they stepped in, they were stopped. However, as the son of the Nether Mansion's Mansion Lord, it was not difficult for Wei Botian to enter Breaking Soul Tower. Inside Breaking Soul Tower. After stepping into Breaking Soul Tower, Longao grabbed Tong Linga and asked with a grave expression, "What are you doing?" Tong Linga was pleasantly surprised. She laughed mischievously and said, "I came in with great difficulty. Of course, I have to find what I want. Why are you stopping me?" Giving a look, Longao wished that he could kick Tong Linga out with a kick. Before long, the three people arrived at the corner of the Breaking Soul Tower. After confirming it over and over again, Longao heaved a long sigh of relief. "Longao, what is going on? Are you out of your mind? As a titled Great Emperor, can't you sense the slightest bit of aura?" Tong Linga was not a fool. Of course, she knew what Longao meant. She did not dare to release her aura and asked, "Are you saying that someone is here?" "That's right. If I'm not wrong, the other party should be a great emperor from the Nether Mansion. If you act rashly, won't you expose our whereabouts?" "Tong Linga, I can tell you clearly that we are not safe after entering Breaking Soul Tower. Once we are discovered, we will be in trouble." Longao was extremely depressed. As soon as he stepped into Breaking Soul Tower, he had already felt the great emperor aura of Breaking Soul Tower. If it were not for Wei Botian, the two of them would have been discovered by the other party. "Longao, what should we do now?" Looking at the girl in front of him, Longao finally realized one thing. A person's strength had nothing to do with how they were. At the end of the day, Tong Linga was still inexperienced and did not seem to understand anything. "Don't be impatient." Longao gave the order to Wei Botian. However, as if he had thought of something, Longao suddenly asked, "Things have already come to this point. We don't have any way out. However, don't be reckless. I have already sensed it just now. There are at least 2 great sovereign experts in the Breaking Soul Tower. Under normal circumstances, with your strength, there shouldn't be a problem. However, we can't alarm the divine experts." Tong Linga was a titled Great Emperor. It was not difficult for her to kill 2 ordinary Great Emperors. Longao was not very worried about this. Chapter 700. Longao had full confidence in Tong Linga's strength. But the Nether Mansion was different. Not to mention the Nether Emperor of the Nether Mansion, just the presence of a supreme Dao martial practitioner would be troublesome if discovered. Because of this, Longao had to be careful, thinking of all kinds of solutions. "Longao, I can't tell you this, but seeing that you're not bad, I'll reluctantly tell you." Disdain. Longao felt disdain. Because things had already reached this point, even if Tong Linga didn't say anything, he would find out later. "Longao, I came to the Nether Mansion to find something. This thing may be useless to others, but it's very useful to you." "Me?" Longao was confused. He didn't know what the other party meant, and why would this matter involve him? Yes, legend has it that there is a Nether Blood Sea diagram in the Nether Mansion. If you can get it and put it in the Dragon Sect, even a supreme Dao martial practitioner won't be able to invade the Dragon Sect. His heart skipped a beat. The Nether Blood Sea diagram? For some reason, Longao suddenly thought of the Endless Blood Sea diagram. When he entered the cave with Aoshua, he accidentally obtained the Ghost King Sect's ultimate treasure, the endless blood sea diagram. In the end, Long Chong merged with it and improved it. But Longao couldn't figure out one thing. If the nether blood sea diagram was so powerful, why didn't the nether mansion use it? As if she could see Longao's confusion, Tonglinga chuckled and said, "Of course the nether mansion wants to use the nether blood sea diagram to dominate spirit realm. Why is that? The reason is simple. First, the nether mansion can't dominate spirit realm due to some restrictions. Second, I heard that the nether blood sea diagram is forbidden. For so many years, the nether mansion has been unable to open the nether blood sea diagram. Therefore, the nether mansion sealed the nether blood sea diagram in soul-breaking tower. So that's why." Longao didn't know why, but he still felt that there was something fishy about this matter. However, he didn't ask any further. No matter what, the other party was doing this for his own good. If what the other party said was true, that the nether blood sea diagram could help the sect, then no matter how dangerous it was, he would give it a try. All of a sudden, Tonglinga's expression changed and became abnormally serious. She asked, "Longao, let me ask you a question now. You must answer truthfully. Do you really love senior sister?" Hearing this, Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Tonglinga meant. However, Longao still nodded and replied, "I love you Yin very much. I believe you know a thing or two about the things between us. Let me ask you, in this world, how many people can do this?" Thinking of Yu Yin, Longao missed her even more. After 10 years of persistence, Longao would not forget everything that Yu Yin had done for him. A woman could destroy the most important thing for him. This in itself was enough to show the feelings that Yu Yin had for him. It was a little dazed, a little jealous, a little envious. But Tonglinga tried her best not to show it, but her tone was already wrong. With a cold snort, she said, "Longao, do you really think that you and senior sister Yu Yin can be together?" Regarding Tonglinga's meaning, how could Longao not know? Yu Yin's current status was already different. Although he didn't know what kind of existence the sects behind Yu Yin and Tonglinga were, Longao was sure of one thing, and that was that the sects behind the two of them were definitely one of the top existences in the Sky Martial continent. There were two reasons why Longao guessed like this. The first reason was that Yu Yin's master, Hades, should also be a heavenly god. The second reason was that Yu Yin had become a sovereign in such a short time. That in itself was a problem. Furthermore, Tonglinga had already become a titled sovereign at such a young age. Just thinking about it was frightening. Could the sect behind Yu Yin and Tonglinga be the Myriad Beast sect? The Heaven and Earth sect? Or some other superpower? Longao didn't ask, because he knew that if Tonglinga didn't want to say more, it would be useless even if he asked. "Do you think that there's no way for us to be together?" "Longao, it's not that I don't think highly of the two of you, but there's no way for the two of you to be together." If anyone else had said this, Longao would have fallen out with them. However, even so, Longao's expression was very ugly. He didn't continue to dwell on this question. Looking around, he suddenly said, "Let's start now." Longao had already glanced around. There were a total of 9 floors in the Broken Soul Tower. They were only on the first floor now. In other words, they didn't know which floor the Nether Blood Sea diagram was on. If they searched floor by floor, who knew how long it would take them to find it? If they were in an ordinary place, it wouldn't matter if they kept searching like this. After all, they had plenty of time. However, the problem now was that they were in the Nether Mansion. They could be discovered by a supreme Dao martial artist at any time. "Longao, the move you just used just now, just do it again 9 times. Wait for me here. I'll be back soon. No, we came here together. If we live together. If we die together. If senior sister can do it, I can do it too." Tonglinga didn't know if it was intentional or not, but she said softly, "If you don't abandon me, I'll be with you in life and death." Hearing this, Longao's body suddenly trembled. Even if Longao was a fool, he could understand the meaning behind Tonglinga's words. Could it be that Tonglinga liked him? Thinking of this, Longao's body trembled again. Although he had a good impression of Tonglinga, No matter what, his heart only had Aoshue and Yu Yin. There was no room for a third person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rejected Longjing back then. Tonglinga, your senior sister and I love each other until death. Longao, do you think I can't do it? I can tell you clearly that if senior sister can do it, I can do it too. If senior sister can't do it, I can still do it. If you don't abandon me, I'll be with you in life and death. Before Longao could speak, Tonglinga continued, Longao, things are out in the open. I don't intend to hide it. I like you. I don't ask to replace senior sister's position. I just hope that you can give me a chance. His head hurt. Longao never thought that Tonglinga would like him. It was too sudden. Longao wasn't even prepared. He didn't know why Tonglinga liked him. I only have Aoshue and Yu Yin in my heart. Longao's meaning was very clear. He rejected her. There were only two people in his heart. One was Yu Yin, and the other was Aoshue. Other than them, his heart couldn't hold a third person, whether it was Tonglinga or Longjing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.